Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Zabriskie?
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Pallavi?
Here.
Councilmember Romack?
Here.
Vice Mayor Henderson?
Here.
And Mayor Klofstad?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, can we stand for Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you, everyone. So right now, I'm going to open it up for general public comment. This would be for time for any member of the public to make a comment on anything not on tonight's agenda. Is there anybody that wishes to do so? You do? Well, please come forward. The podium, if you can turn the microphone on, and you can angle the microphone down to you, state your name, and you have 3 minutes. You could follow the clock here on the left.
Hi, my name is Gwen. I am 11 years old and I'm in 6th grade at ACMS. I've been riding bikes in Truckee since we first moved here 6 years ago. I recently started riding my bike on my own. My first trip was to Thrifty Tales to pick up a present. My next trip was to Save Mart along the paved trail behind my house. I'm really enjoying being independent and having the freedom to explore my town on my own. I have a couple asks of the town. While I feel safe riding on the paved bike trails, it's no fun riding in the bike lane when cars drive too fast past me. Also, I don't feel like I'm protected from them because a white line won't stop them from hitting me. Also, every bike lane seems to end, like by the roundabout, the bike lane just ends and I have to merge into traffic. And most of the time, the cars don't expect me to be there, so they don't give me any space. So tonight I ask for you to help to slow down cars, build protected bike lanes, so that cars aren't swerving in and out of the white painted bike lane. And please find new solutions so that bike lanes don't end. Thank you for letting me share my comments here tonight.
Whoops, thank you so much for coming to speak with us. We appreciate your concerns and your taking the time to share them with us. Are there any other general public comments?
Yes, hello. My name is Martina Kaldoui. I'm a member of the Coldstream community, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about our experience since the Navigation Center opened. So, good evening, and thank you all for the opportunity to speak. And I'm just here to share some observations from the Navigation Center and in our neighborhood. And so since the opening, we have seen an increase in incident, about 11 since the opening. And the bus stop is located directly across from the school bus pickup and drop-off area. And as a result, children are sometimes exposed to situations of drinking, loitering, which is, not a good experience for the kids. So residents also have reported, our mailboxes are right next to the bus stop as well, that they're feeling uncomfortable accessing the mailboxes or encountering people loitering nearby. So it just feels not really comfortable. It's not every day that somebody is there, but we have seen people coming there, sitting there, and it's just, when there's 4 people and you're by yourself and you walk over there, it just feels a little bit uncomfortable. So while many of these incidents may appear minor, not minor, but they are smaller incidents, but the frequency and proximity to our homes have affected residents' sense of safety. So I think that's really the big point here. Personally, I no longer feel comfortable leaving my door unlocked when I go running. I used to just leave it unlocked, and and people don't feel comfortable doing that anymore. I think some of the neighbors that I talk to, I should say, not all of them. Our neighborhood is also an open community without fences. So this openness has always been part of what makes our neighborhood welcoming. But it also means residents feel particularly exposed when disruptive behavior occurs nearby. So I think that's another consideration. But I wanted to also say that we acknowledge that the navigation center personnel have been extremely cooperative. The police department has been responsive, and the town acted quickly to remove graffiti by a disgruntled person that was actually at the navigation center. He had alcohol on site and was kicked out, and as a consequence, he painted graffiti at the bus stop. So, but the town was immediately there and fixed it. So we were all in support. We are supportive of the navigation pilot, but with the incidence increase, we feel that the long-term solution, may be affecting our safety in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martina. Because these items are not agendized, we can't deliberate or take action on them, but please do know that we have been receiving reports of the activities of this weekend, and we know our police department is being very proactive, and we have a meeting scheduled tomorrow, correct, with the HOA to continue to work through some of these issues and to try to create a better. Any other public comments for items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll close general public comment and move on to our presentations. So we have Danielle.
Yes.
Okay, and Taylor.
Good evening, Mayor Klostad and council members. We're here this evening. I'm Danielle McHugh, Transportation Program Coordinator for the town, and this is Taylor Fitteman, our Administrative Technician with the Transportation Division. We're here this evening to provide you with a brief update on an exciting project that we've been working on to bring real-time tracking to our transit system. First, we wanted to provide a quick background. At one point in time, all of our TART fixed route buses in Placer and the town of Truckee were equipped with the technology known as NextBus. The intent of the technology was to bring real-time data and tracking. However, poor self-service in the region just made the data really unreliable, so it eventually got phased out and discontinued sometime around 2021. Since then, riders have had no access to real-time data, and this has been identified as a top priority by rider surveys taken during both the town's short-range transit plan and the 2025 TART systems plan update in Placer County. Without real-time data, riders tend to lack confidence in public transportation, especially when the bus only runs once per hour. This uncertainty is exacerbated in winter and peak seasons when weather or road construction can cause significant delays. And people don't want to be waiting at the bus stop wondering if the bus left a minute or two early or if it's running late, and if it is, how late. And these concerns are exactly the opposite of how we want people to experience and perceive the transit system. So Taylor is going to go ahead and talk about a little bit about what we have been working on.
So as a solution to these concerns by the community, we have implemented a platform called Swiftly. Swiftly specializes in real-time transit predictions. It's user-friendly and scalable with an initial implementation in Truckee and an eventual expansion to Placer County. It integrates seamlessly with our existing Samsara dashboard hardware. We don't need to purchase any new hardware for this. And here you can see an example of a plug-and-play feature that will soon be available on the town website, where people can see exactly where their bus is. You can click on any one of those dots, which are bus stops, and it'll show you to the minute how long it will take for that bus to arrive there. On the rider experience side, there are a few major benefits included, which include live bus location, real-time schedule prediction, improved wait time confidence, which especially impacts are impacted when events like special events or weather affect the route. Riders can plan their trips regionally with the transit app, Google Maps, or Apple Maps, and I'll go into that more. And riders can sign up for service alerts to get alerted for their route, and I will also go into more detail on that. Over time, improving fixed route predictability will likely encourage ridership shift from on-demand, like TART Connect, to the fixed route, which aids overall system efficiency and cost effectiveness. Here you can see an example of one very powerful app that we will be promoting. It's highly well known and used internationally, and the best part is that it is free. It offers the option for riders to subscribe to push notifications, to be alerted when their route is delayed, rerouted, out of service, etc. You can see the little broadcast symbol on the 51 square. That means that it is a real-time arrival prediction that's projected by Swiftly based off of our GPS tracking. You can see next to it at the timestamp 9:43 where it says scheduled below. That is not a real-time prediction. That is simply based off of the written schedule. So currently, real-time tracking and predictions are only available in Truckee, but Placer is in the process of procuring Swiftly platform in hopes to have it implemented before the summer TART schedule around mid-June. Even without the real-time predictions, all TART routes are available on the transit app, and riders can plan their trips between Truckee and North Lake Tahoe, for example. These are just some visuals of Apple Maps, Google Maps. The details are really small, but there is a differentiation between on time and that real-time prediction versus scheduled, which is not real time. There's no way to know if your bus is delayed or on time. From the driver experience side of things, the dashboard is extremely simple, not distracting, and supports schedule adherence and tracking passenger counts. With the onboard app, drivers are provided with clear prompts to help them remain on time so they don't leave their stop too early. As you can see in that red circle, early is bad in this case. So on the app, it's very simple for the driver to take passenger counts, and it automatically pops up on their tablet when they approach the stop. In the past, these were all taken via pen and paper and then transcribed by the dispatcher, which left a lot of room for error. On the dispatch side of things, there are some powerful tools, including creating custom detour routes for things like circumventing parade routes, road work, for emergency applications. Dispatch can also create or push service alerts to keep riders informed about changes to a schedule or route. And it's easy to review and monitor on-time performance. These are just some examples of some public outreach we plan to push through social media and have printed flyers on buses and in bus stops just to make people more aware of these powerful tools and that they are now available in this region, specifically for Truckee and eventually wider. We also plan to have real-time displays at the Mobility Hub and the Truckee Depot with these real-time predictions, as well as making awareness of these tools. We went from limited data in general to very flexible, accurate, and actionable data, which will ideally support even higher levels of regional TART system coordination with Placer in the future.
So as Taylor has described, this new platform has many benefits and features that are aimed at reducing barriers and improving the customer experience and confidence in the system. In alignment with the 2040 general plan, the town's short-range transit plan, and Placer County's 2025 TART systems plan update, our goal is to increase convenience and accessibility in order to encourage more ridership on public transportation. TART Connect has proven to be a very successful service, but we're hoping that the availability of real-time tracking and schedule predictions will help reduce the high demand on TART Connect and shift people to the fixed route when possible. So currently TART Connect data is not available on these trip planning apps, but we continue to work with them to try and get that available. So that people can actually see all of their options for public transportation, no matter where they are in town or in the North Lake area. And eventually, we hope to integrate bike share into planning or trip planning as well.
We've been extremely eager to share these exciting updates and for the public to have an answer when they have the question, where is my bus? If you want to check out the transit app, you can scan this QR code and download it for yourself. But we thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time tonight, and we're happy to answer any questions after the town manager report.
Thank you very much. We'll go on to the town manager report then.
Great, thank you. And that was Taylor's first presentation, so well done, Taylor. I only have one item tonight. We have a call for artists out, the Public Art Commission next project. They'll be tackling public art in the Coldstream Roundabout. And so they have issued a call for artists. The deadline for that is April 24th, and you can find out information about that on our website or on our social media accounts. That's all I have tonight.
Great, thank you very much. Do we have any questions for either presentation? Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, we never have so many questions. I do. That's incredibly exciting. Thank you and congratulations. You answered one of my questions, which was rolling everything into TART Connect and like bike and being able to get a full picture of transit. So we'll be patient and wait on that one. When you said you're going to do a real-time like screen at those major locations, but we're also going to do enhanced signage and stuff at like all bus stops in town. Is that like, is there going to be a outreach plan for that?
We don't currently have a plan for that. We have definitely discussed it, but it's not something that we have in the budget for the next like year.
You should ask for that.
Okay.
Because that seems like a no-brainer. Because if people are waiting at the bus stops, that's like the number one complaint that we see. I mean, people come into our store like every day.
Okay.
Do you know when the bus is going to come? No, I don't know when the bus is going to come. Now I'll be able to answer them, but they can now answer it for themselves as well. So we should find some budget for that.
Your own QR code up.
We should do that.
Yes,
That's a
we
great
should do
idea.
that,
If the town could provide me with a template, that would be even better. Yes. But yeah, so I would encourage us to do that and for you guys to ask for that. That was my first question. And then my second question was, can you very briefly explain to me why we're doing this only for the town and this isn't like a TNTMA thing or a broader TART issue? Like, why do we have our own system and we're waiting? Why isn't the whole system doing the same thing at the same time?
So Next Bus was originally procured by Placer, and we sort of piggybacked off of them because they are obviously the larger partner in TART. When Next Bus went away, we were not informed right away, so we were still kind of using it and realized, okay, we're just not using this anymore. It's not reliable. We've been trying to work with Placer on getting real-time information for the last few years, but their procurement process is much beefier than ours is, a lot trickier. So we, ended up having discussions and deciding that we would move forward with, trying something, which ended up being Swiftly, at least as a pilot. And if Placer was able to get on board with that, then great, because they were just kind of running into staffing challenges with their manager being out on leave, and then just understaffed, and this wasn't a top priority. So we were able to, once we started to enter into the contract process with Swiftly, we let Placer know that Swiftly is going to work out great for us, and they followed suit immediately and are in the procurement process. They've been going back and forth for the last, I think, 2.5 months with their procurement and IT team, and they are very close. So it will all be integrated together. It's just that we're going to be under 2 separate contracts, and they're a little slower than us.
Thank you very much for explaining that. Hopeful. That's it for me.
This is so fantastic. So excited about this. And welcome back, Danielle. I think this is your first presentation in a little while. So glad to see you again. But yeah, I think what you were saying about just ease of transit use for the community is going to be huge. So one of my questions was going to be similar to Councilmember Pallavi, of opportunities of other places, to put the signs of when it's coming. And then also on outreach, what was just described too, of businesses having this QR code. I was just at the Chamber of Commerce board meeting and brought up real-time bus information, and everybody was so excited that this was coming. So are there plans to work with Chamber of Commerce, TDMA, to get out these materials so it's all over town and people know this exists?
Yeah, so the examples that Taylor showed, that's, kind of our first draft. We're working on getting the materials ready, and then we will definitely be sharing them with Chamber, TDMA, VTT, but we can even look at doing some of those sort of small business card type things with the QR code for transit app on them, like we did with Heart Connect, because those were super effective. So yeah, we can definitely work on a much broader outreach.
Great. And then this would be a challenge, but would it be possible for our special event shuttles to have this technology? Because I do know, like last year, Truckee Thursdays, I would be waiting for a bus sometimes, and when is it coming? So I don't know if that's a possibility at all or something to look to in the future.
We can definitely look into it. I'm not sure how that would work, since we contract with North Star, and the technology that they have on the buses would be much different. I do know that the operators at North Star, like, they have the ability to see where their buses are, so the GPS is already on the bus. It's just if we can get that either through Swiftly ourselves or work with North Star on getting something, but we can try.
Great. Well, thank you. Good job, everyone. This is super exciting.
Sure. Seems like it's an opportunity for North Star to also engage in this, having taken their shuttle. Not a bad idea to know when that's coming. Yeah. Okay, questions on this side?
No, great progress. It's really great to see, and then great questions from the dais. Thank you.
Okay, and I just have one more just clarifying question. So you're doing digital displays for the timing of the next bus at like the transit hub, and where else?
The plan, and this is not necessarily going to happen this summer, but at the mobility hub and the depot would be the 2 main kind of transportation centers.
Okay, and then just signs with the QR code on the other bus stops is what we're
for the short term.
We're recognizing would be a good investment in our budget process. Okay, great. Good. Are there any public comments on the 2 presentations? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to consent agenda. So these are typically considered regular business items. I'm going to go ahead and read through them. We have 6.1 minutes for the February 24th, 2026 regular meeting. 6.2, acceptance of the financial status update for the quarter ended December 31st, 2025. 6.3, approve resolution 2026-6, amending the town wage matrix. 6.4, contract amendment for the homegrown housing economic feasibility analysis with BAE Urban Economics Incorporated. 6.5, approval of spending authority for workforce education contract with Sierra Business Council. And 6.6, Historic Preservation Advisory Commission reconfiguration. Does any council member wish to pull any of the consent agenda items? Any member of staff?
No, Mayor.
Do we have any member of the public that wishes to pull any of these agenda items? Okay, with that, I'll look for a motion.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Okay, 7.1. Nikki, acceptance of the annual comprehensive financial report and audit reports for fiscal year 2024-25.
Madam Mayor and council members, I want to introduce Pierce, who is our audit manager that led the team that did the annual independent audit, and he's actually going to start us off. So Pierce, take away when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay?
We can, Pierce.
Thank you. Perfect. I'm going to share my screen real quick to share my PowerPoint slides here. One moment. And can you see the first PowerPoint slide there? Okay.
Not yet. No.
Oh, sorry. I have one more button to push.
Looks like it's coming up
How about
now. Double click to enter full screen mode. There we are. There it is.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone for allowing me to present tonight. As Nikki stated, my name is Pierce Ray. I'm an audit manager for MUN CPAs here in Sacramento. And I'm here to present the summary of the audit results for the town's June 30th, 2025 year end. We'll go over a quick overview of the presentation that I'll be doing. We'll first start out by doing a summary of the financial results, but for detailed explanations, please refer to the management's discussion and analysis on page 4 through 16 on the report. And then we'll go over the audit overview, which is really the main purpose of this presentation, is to discuss the audit process with you all, as well as the audit results. So this first slide shows the government net position as a whole year over year. And you can see that there is an increase in net investment in capital assets. And this relates to several construction projects in the town, as well as the purchases of equipment throughout the year. And these items were subject to our audit testing for the fiscal year. You'll also note a increase in restricted, and this was due to the change in fund balance, or might also know it as net income, might be a more familiar term, in the Measure U and Measure V funds, which are restricted in nature. So those are the key reasons for those increases in those two asset classes. And then the rest of the net position is in unrestricted. This slide shows that the revenue and expense of the governmental funds from 2021 all the way to 2025. You'll notice that revenue has been greater than expense since 2021, which is a good indicator that the town is not taking on unsustainable operations. So that is a good indicator that the town is growing and setting aside reserves for the future. In 2025, revenue decreased as there were fewer capital grants and contributions compared to 2024. So you'll notice a slight decrease in the revenue, and that's because of the capital grants compared to 2024. Then we'll move on to the net position for the business type activities. This slide shows the overall net position of the proprietary type funds, which involve the parking fund, the transit fund, solid waste, and the building and safety fund. Net income in capital, or not, excuse me, net investment in capital assets increased due to the purchase of several vehicles during the fiscal year, which were all part of our testing in our testing for the fixed assets. And the remaining net position is listed as unrestricted. This next tab shows the revenue expense year over year for the proprietary type funds. And you'll notice that revenue and expense, or revenue is always greater than expense, which is definitely a good sign that the town is not taking on unsustainable operations, and they're again building reserves for the future. A key reason for this increase in revenue is the increase in operating grants and contributions in 2025 compared to 2024. So that was a brief summary of the financial information. Now I'll move on to the audit overview. Before I get too deep into the audit overview, I'd like to discuss the responsibility of each party for the financial statements. So management is responsible for the preparation and presentation of the financial statements. So although we prepared the financial statements using our financial statement software, the underlying data came from management of the town, so they're ultimately responsible for the financial statements. The responsibility of the auditor for our side of things is to provide financial statement users with an independent opinion on whether the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects in accordance with applicable accounting standards, which in this case would be GAAP. Now we'll get in and go over the audit process so you can gain some insight into the work that was done. So our interim field work, which began in August of 2025, involved planning, and we did a risk assessment there. And what I mean by that is we looked at various accounts, various financial statement line items, and developed our audit strategy for those. How far did we want to dig into certain types of accounts, certain types of financial statement line items, and the audit approach that we wanted to take. We also reviewed council minutes throughout the year so we can gain an understanding of the activity within the town throughout the year. And then we also made inquiries of management so we can also build an understanding of the activity throughout the year. And even weeks before the August field work, we sent a long list to the town of items to provide us several weeks in advance of that field work. And Nikki and Cindy and their team did a great job of providing us the schedules and the documents timely so we can keep the audit on track. And then about 2 weeks before that August field work date, we sent the town some sample selections of items that we wanted to test. So when we get into the field and that field work comes around, we can really hit the ground running. So the purpose of interim field work is to gain an understanding of the processes and the internal controls within the organization. And we have to do this through with all of our audits, and we have to determine if internal controls and segregation of duties are appropriate for the size of the organization. The areas that we looked at were cash receipts, which affects the revenue side of things. And it's not just cash receipts, but it's all receipts, whether it be by check or electronic. We look at disbursements, which affects the expense side of things. And then we also look at payroll, the internal controls over payroll. And we look at the internal controls over journal entries, bank reconciliations, and financial reporting. One of the things we look at in financial reporting is how often town council is getting financial data. That's a control that we like to see if town council is getting regular financial data. This is something you would need, being the ultimate decision makers for the town. So we'd like to check that control out. For payroll, we look at things such as is there a review and approval over time cards? Is there a review and approval over new hires? How are pay rates reviewed and approved? We also look at bank reconciliations to make sure bank reconciliations are not only being done regularly, we want to make sure that bank reconciliations are being done timely. So that's another area we look at. And then disbursements, we make sure that, is there a review and approval over the invoice, because this is cash, going out from the town. So we want to make sure there's good controls in place over that. So we look at approval of invoices, and then we also make sure that the disbursement is signed by the authorized signer, by an authorized signer. So we gain an understanding of the internal controls of the town, and that helps us develop our strategy for our year-end field work. And that occurred in December of 2025, and that involves testing of year-end balances on the balance sheet as well as activity on the income statement. Again, we send the town several weeks before that December 2025 field work date. We send the town a long list of schedules and items that we need. And again, they do a great job of providing us thorough documentation as well as timely documentation so we can keep the audit on track. And then about 2 weeks before that year-end fieldwork date in December, we sent the town another list of sample selections of transactions that we wanted to test to give them time to pull that support. So then when that December 2025 fieldwork comes around, we can hit the ground running and get through our audit procedures. And they did a great job of having the sample selections pulled and organized and help us get through the audit efficiently. Some of the procedures that we did were confirmation of balances. And so what this involves is we reached out to third-party institutions to get them to send us confirmation of their of the town's year-end balances. And this is the best type of audit document or audit evidence, I should say, that we could get because it comes directly from a third party. We obtain this evidence for areas such as cash, investments, the town's long-term debt, as well as the town's property tax revenue. We did cutoff testing, and that affects receivables and payables. So what we did there is we looked at transactions near year end or right after the year end to make sure that they were recorded in the correct period. And this is GAAP accrual accounting. So this is a key test to make sure the financial statements are on accrual basis. We also did a test of detailed transactions where we looked at invoices or equivalent documents as well as payment support. We did this for areas such as prepaids, inventory, capital asset testing, deposits payable, grant revenue, as well as tax revenue. And then another procedure we do is an analytical review. The main analytical review we do is a year-over-year revenue and expense analytic, and we reach out to the town for certain accounts meeting certain thresholds and get explanations for the fluctuations. And in some instances, we will require additional documentation to support the fluctuations. We do additional analytics over interest income, payroll analytics, as well as capital assets and interest expense. Another main part of our audit is doing the single audit, which is the audit of federal grant expenditures in accordance with the uniform guidance. And that is for entities that have federal expenditures in excess of $750,000, and the town required a single audit this year. Then after we're done with our audit procedures, after that December week of auditing, we move into the audit wrap-up and preparation of the financial statements as well as the footnotes. And a lot of the procedures we do during the audit help us gain the information we need for the footnotes. And then once we're confident that the numbers are, not going to change and there's not going to be any journal entries, we'll move on to the financial statement preparation. So this year, to give you a little insight on the financial statement preparation, I prepared the financial statements, and then those went on to our internal review, which they were reviewed by the partner on the audit, Justin Williams. And then they were also reviewed. We have in our firm, we have what's done. It's called a tech review, where a partner within our firm who's not on the Truckee audit reviews the financial statements. It's just an extra set of review, part of our quality assurance, and to get a fresh set of eyes to make sure we didn't miss anything. And then once I have get all those levels of review cleared up, I will pass those on to Nikki and Cindy, and they will review them and cross-reference them with their numbers in their books, as well as provide me any edits or comments they had. And once we get that cleared up, they are in the state that you have them right now. So there is about 3 levels of review to get the financial statements where they are. Moving on to audit reporting, which is the whole reason we do the audit, so we can get the results in to the hands of the financial statement users. So the results are broken up into 5 different areas, which is the audit opinion, the independent auditor's report, the government auditing standards report, which you're required to have since you're a governmental unit. Then there's the uniform guidance report, which is needed because there was a single audit required, a management letter if that's required, and then there is the audit conclusion letter to those charged with governance. And I'll cover each of these next. So the independent auditor's report, there's a few types of audit opinions you can get. You can get an unmodified, qualified, adverse, or disclaimer. The town received a unmodified, clean audit opinion for June 30th, 2025, which is great news there. They had no material misstatements, and it also states that the financial statements are presented in accordance with GAAP. The financial statements also contain management's discussion and analysis. Then after that are the face of the financial statements themselves. Then it goes on to the notes to the financial statements, as well as the required supplementary information. And then there's the statistical information at the end of the report. The next report is the government auditing standards report, and it's required for governmental financial statements. This would state if there were any material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or compliance exceptions. And we're pleased to present that there were none of those for June 30th, 2025. Then the next type of letter would be the management letter, which reports any control deficiencies or recommendations for improvement. The town did a great job this year, and there was no management letter issued for 2025. Then the uniform guidance report, which is needed again for this single audit. Like I mentioned earlier, it's needed for when an entity expends more than $750,000 in federal grant funds. The major program tested was the Home Investment Partnership Program. The single audit received an unmodified, clean audit opinion, and there were no findings in relation to internal controls over compliance. So more good news there. Then we'll move on to the conclusion letter, and this letter again is known as the communication with those charged with governance. It covers new accounting policies. This year there was GASB 101, which was compensated absences, that was implemented this year, and the town was very proactive in implementing the new GASB. It covers if there was any significant changes in disclosures, which there were none. It also lists out accounting estimates, which are depreciation, pension, and OPEB liabilities, lease-related accounts, and SEBITAs. And then the new estimate this year would be compensated absences. And these are all standard estimates that towns, cities, and utility districts would need to get their financial statements in line with GAAP. So nothing unusual there. This conclusion letter would also list that there was any difficulties encountered in performing the audit, of which there were none. We didn't have any disagreements with management, and during the audit, we didn't find any audit adjustments. So the last slide is a summary of what we just covered. It was an unmodified, clean audit opinion, which is the only opinion you want. And it was an unmodified opinion on the major program for the single audit. No material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, no audit adjustments, and no major issues, disagreements, or difficulties in performing the audit. So that concludes my presentation. You have my contact information there, the number here at the firm, or my email, if any questions come up.
Thank you so much, Pierce. I appreciate that detailed level of reporting. Do we have any questions from council members?
Mayor, Nikki does have some additional information to share about some of the numbers, just a few slides. So if you wanted to wait for her to present that.
We will. Okay. So we might have questions for Nikki. No, I have one.
Just waiting for the screen to reset here.
Yeah, I just stopped sharing, so you shouldn't be seeing my screen anymore.
Okay, so I did get a late question, and so I just wanted to address that probably proactively. So in government agencies, we're required to present the financials in two different formats. The first two statements that you see in the financial statements are the government-wide statements. Those have a longer-term measurement focus. Revenues are recorded when they're earned, and expenses are recorded when the liability is incurred, which is different than the second set of financial statements that we present, which are the fund financial statements. So those present like general fund, capital projects, Measure V, Measure R, and you see each fund in its own line, and you see the assets and liabilities for each of those funds. And the measurement focus in the fund statements is a nearer term focus. Revenues are recorded when measurable and available. And for the town, that means that we had to receive the funds within 60 days of the end of the fiscal year. So that creates a difference in the fund balances that you see between the government-wide and the fund statements. We have to do a bunch of entries to convert our fund statements into our government-wide statements. So it's super fun. The government-wide statements are what you would traditionally see like at a private entity, where they record the revenue when they know they've earned it, versus it doesn't matter when they're going to receive it. It just matters when it was earned, and they know that they're going to actually get the money. So that's more what you see in the private sector. And then the fund financial statements are supposed to help council kind of understand our like near-term cash availability, because it's what we will actually have in terms of revenue in the near term. So when I do like to just kind of briefly touch on the general fund. And so we did report the actual results as part of the financial update for the quarter as well. And we ended the year with a $1.3 million fund balance increase from $60 million to $61.3 million. That's slightly different than the general fund balance you see in the financial statements. And the difference between that number and the financial statement number is that Measure K and ARPA are included in the financial statement number. Those are technically not separate funds, but we track them separately so that we kind of understand how those revenues and stuff are flowing through our system. But then for to match government reporting, we lump them in with the general fund. So overall, great results. Our revenues increased, our expenses also increased, but we still increased our fund balance, so that's great. Then this screen is looking at how the fund balance is separated out. So the first, and it's kind of like, oh, like I have, $1 million in my savings account. Well, if you're really rich, you have $100 in your savings account, and it's like, well, this is for my cell phone, and this is, I'm saving it for, a little trip to Mexico. And that's kind of how we allocate out our fund balance, except for our fund balances in line with government reporting standards, so much more boring. But we start with our non-spendable fund balance. So those are things that are like in inventory or prepaid expenses, so things that are not readily convertible to cash. And then the assigned fund balances are really fun for council because it's kind of like how we are setting aside money for future priorities. So the really big one is the general fund contingency, which increased from 16.7 million to 17.9 million. And as a reminder, that's supposed to be 35% of general fund revenues. That's what we're saving in like a rainy day fund in case something catastrophic happens in town. We want to have cash on hand so that we can go out and help our citizens and be ready for those efforts. The sustainability designation increased from 1 million to 1.3 million. We started the public art designation with a $100,000 savings, and our undesignated cash available balance after we took out our non-spendable and our designations and then our restricted fund balances, our cash available increased from 34.4 million to 35.1 million, so about a $630,000 increase. Okay, so then our specific question on fund balances that I got here. So our government-wide fund balance has an unrestricted balance of 77.7 million, and our governmental funds had a unassigned balance of 33.7. So those are two different things. The unrestricted balance is essentially anything that didn't fit into the other categories for our government wide. So we calculate our net investment in capital assets. So as we don't report capital assets in our governmental funds because they are a long-term thing. So we do a conversion from the fund statements into government-wide. And then there are some funds that are restricted, and that would be like Measure V. So we report that on our governmental. And so then it's basically like ending fund balance minus these other two categories. And that's what gets us to unrestricted in our government-wide. And that's different than what's in our governmental unassigned fund balance. So those shouldn't correlate, and if you're trying to get them to match, good luck. So you can see the changes that we had to do to convert our governmental funds to our government-wide statements. And so it includes things like recording of capital assets. In the governmental funds, we record something called deferred outflows of resources and then deferred inflows of resources. We also have some long-term liabilities that aren't due in the current period and therefore aren't reported in the governmental fund, but we do report them in the government-wide. So you can see the reconciliation, which is presented right after our governmental fund statements, and it'll show you all the transactions that we made to convert from governmental to government-wide. So it's a lot of fun if you're an accountant. It's not super fun if you're not. So New this year is our you can actually see the designations in the financial statements. Previously, those were only presented in the budget, so just another place people can kind of go to see what council is saving for in the future. And as you see, this is I just pulled the general fund, but they do present it for every fund that we have, and those are on pages 75 and 7 through 77 in the notes to the financial statements. An important item, there is 4.1 million that's saved for road maintenance, and that's basically the amount that we have from the general fund that goes towards the town's pavement maintenance program. So the engineering department creates a pavement maintenance program where they estimate out their future costs that they are going to need to keep the town's roads at a certain condition. And we know that on average, we're going to need about $1.5 million of general fund dollars every year for that effort. And so we save that. Sometimes we use more Measure V dollars in a year, and sometimes we use more road maintenance dollars. But I just like to point that out. So, and then as Pierce said, we did have to implement a new GASB, so that's a Governmental Accounting Standards Board. That was 101 this year. That had a $144,000 impact. So we had to restate our ending fund balance for fiscal year 24 and using the new methodology, and that resulted in an increase to our ending fund balance for 2024 of $144,000. The calculation is much more complicated, but GASB thinks that it provides you a more accurate picture. So we can certainly go over what that calculation means. And then I also like to touch on internal controls. And those are the processes and procedures that we have to establish to ensure that we're collecting accurate financial data. So that would be the security that the town has set up within a software to make sure that every transaction goes through the correct approval. It could also be the fact that we lock up cash. So it's very broad what those can be, but they're intended to reduce asset lot, prevent incomplete information, and ensures our operations are kind of going in accordance with laws, regulations, and ordinance. It's a team effort. It requires participation at every level of the organization, including council. And just to give you an idea of how important this is, the governor just signed a new bill that went into effect on January 1st, and every council elected official is going to get to do 2 hours of financial training in addition to everything else.
Didn't we just get an hour? Doesn't this count?
This is all bonus time.
Bonus time. So, and monitoring is a critical component of that, not just from our independent auditors, but internally as well. And then one thing we always like to highlight is that the costs of internal controls shouldn't outweigh the benefits. So we're going to be coming back to council very soon. I am so thankful to work for an organization that supports parents. I've been very delayed on getting the financial policies back to you guys. I unfortunately had some fun health issues that are dealing with my son, and I appreciate working for an organization that understands those balances. But we will be coming back to do an adoption of a formal internal control process called the COSO framework. And with internal controls, we really want to make sure that the costs don't outweigh the benefits. There is a way where we can make sure that we're controlling every single penny, but that might cost us $2 per penny to control, and that's just silly. So we want to make sure that the costs of the control that we're building doesn't outweigh the benefit that we're getting from it. So with that, I will open it up for questions from Pierce or for myself, and the recommendation is up whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much, Nikki. And it is very helpful to have that additional background. Do we have any council questions? Here? Council questions? Yes, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. I just have a couple of questions for you. So the first, the staff reports notes that this is the final year of the current contract and that an RFP is going to be issued. Just do you have a timeline for that roughly that you can share?
We are mid draft on the RFP, so we're hoping to get it out within the next 1 to 2 weeks.
So very fast. Okay, amazing. And then on the On the net position growth, the governmental activities net position grew by 9.8 million year over year. And there's a 6.3 million increase in unrestricted net position. I'm just trying to understand, does that reflect sort of genuine operating strength or deferred obligations coming in future years, like pension or other post-employment benefits?
And just to confirm where you're looking, are you in the MD&A?
I'm in, hang on. I was in my notes, but I'm on page, I'm on the statement of net position section in the staff report. It says there was a 4.3 million increase in the town's restricted net position and a 6.3 million increase in unrestricted net position.
The bulk of the increase came with an addition to the town's capital assets. So that means that we finished up some infrastructure projects and capitalized those. So those will be depreciated. Infrastructure is depreciated over time. So that will like run through our expenses and ultimately will, we'll use up the useful life of those assets. So the majority of that was in capital assets. So it does not theoretically represent a future use, like a future need. Kind of our major future needs are our net position liability, our net pension liability, and net OPEB liability. And those are really hard to say if they are actually going to need, we know we're going to continue to spend dollars on our pension and our OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits for people who don't read these for fun. And they are really dependent on future investment activity. So it's really hard to accurately say that that is exactly the dollar amount that we're going to need into the future.
And then just one question on the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, 101. It's a methodology change, right? It's not a one-time restatement, right? Like we have to do this going forward, sort of change this methodology. So just sort of if and as we transition to a different auditor potentially with the upcoming RFP, do we have sort of that sick leave estimation methodology fully documented and we have internal capacity to keep applying that going forward?
Yeah, so as Pierce said, we are responsible for all the numbers within the financial statement. We calculated that ourselves. So we had previously calculated the number for fiscal year 24, and then we calculated it again and just booked the difference. And then we had to book the amount for this year. So we're now pretty adept at it.
I do think it's important to clarify that as GASB keeps issuing new statements, it becomes more challenging to keep up with some of the complexities of those, but it's not a choice we have. So the team just kind of tackles that and takes it on and makes it happen, and they do a great job with it.
Councilmember Zabriskie?
Yeah, thank you. Nikki, I have two questions. Well, my first question covers on some of the material you just addressed, and it's particularly focusing on the funds that are described as being unrestricted and available for spending at the town's discretion. And one of them is the general fund, and you showed that at about $34.5 million. And then for a fund that's called the governmental fund, which you've described in the manager's report, it shows that the funds that are unassigned and available for spending at the town's discretion are $33.8 million. And then I look at the actual fund balances. While the amount available for governmental funds is less than it is for general funds, the overall balance is $113 million versus $65 million for the general fund. Can you explain to me, I guess, why those amounts that are available, $34 million, why they're so close together? And then even why is the one for the governmental fund less than the one for the general fund? around page 4 and page 14 of the
Page 4.
management report.
Councilmember, do you have another question while we look up the numbers?
Do I what?
Do you have another question that we've got to pull up some information?
I'm just trying to understand what explains the similarity. Let's just look at the similarity in funds available for being spent by the town at its discretion. What explains the similarity between the general fund and the governmental fund when the governmental fund is so much larger than the general fund? And I'm sort of under the impression the governmental fund encompasses the general fund.
So the government-wide, not government-wide,
The governmental fund.
in the government-wide statements.
Well, you say in your management text that those are two slightly different things. You talk about government-wide activities as not being exactly the same as general funds on page 5.
At this point, would you like to move on to another question while they contemplate that? Or I have one I could ask while they consider this.
The general fund is a governmental fund. There are several types of governmental funds. So general fund is one type. Then there's special revenue funds,
Right.
and then there's capital project funds. So
Okay, let me try it this way. Is that to say virtually all of the funds that are unrestricted and available for spending are encompassed within the general fund?
yes.
And that's why we
The-
don't see any kind of increase when we talk about the governmental funds.
So the general fund is the only fund that reports an unrestricted, like cash, undesignated cash available balance. The other funds, if they have a negative fund balance, they would be a undesignated because you can't have a negative restricted balance.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
there might be like a slight difference.
Okay.
So
I think you just answered my question. Now, looking at the governmental activities amount that's unrestricted and available for spending, is that because it's over a much longer time horizon?
right. So you're talking about in the government-wide statements. Why is that bigger than in the governmental? That is correct because the fund balance in the government-wide statement encompasses a lot more transactions. Like we record transactions as revenue in the government-wide that we do not report as revenue in the governmental.
Okay. Mayor, I have just one other question that I think will be a lot easier to answer, or maybe easier for me to ask. On page 16, there's a reference to the town's general fund, including an assignment for contingencies, then 2.4 million for long-term road maintenance program. Is that intended to be a supplement to the Measure V road tax funds? You see that near the bottom of page 16?
Correct. That's supposed to be the road maintenance designation.
Okay. And that's to supplement the Measure V road tax funds?
Right. So I was kind of trying to explain how the town determines the amount that we save. So the engineering department does the pavement maintenance program and determines what they think they're going to spend on road maintenance over, I think it's like a 5-year horizon. And then we say, okay, we think we're going to get about X dollars in Measure V, and then after we take out the amount we're getting for Measure V, how much else do we need to generate? And so the road maintenance reserve is the amount that we need to save in the general fund to cover our road maintenance costs.
Okay.
So yes, it's a supplement to Measure V, but it's also like a critical component of the amount the town needs to maintain the roads at the desired level.
Right. Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Hey, thank you. I have a quick one. Single audit requirement. So we get a lot of grants very proud of the town for all of that. Is this required for just a single grant expenditure over 750,000 or cumulative grant expenditure?
It's cumulative.
Okay.
The challenging part for
Do
the
it regularly.
Well, the challenging part for the town is the way the single audit classifies outstanding loan balances is that every year we have outstanding loan balances of federal dollars. They're considered federal expenditures. So we have several.
But we haven't expended them.
We did expend them once
Okay.
at the beginning of the loan. We expended them, but as long as we have a balance of those loans, we have to report those as federal expenditures every year. So because we have those, like the CDBG program and SDGB program and the home grant program, the total dollar value of those programs is more than the loan balances that we have outstanding is more than 750,000. So as long as we have those loans outstanding, then we will always require a single audit.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity.
But we do also get a lot of federal dollars, especially for our transit program. So those dollars in and of themselves might push us over every year.
Okay.
I do like to preface it that those typically are the reason that we go over, though.
Okay. Okay. All right. Do we have any public comments on this agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, do we have any further deliberation on this? Anybody? Okay. Yeah, I do just have a couple of comments. First of all, you've gotten us very accustomed to these unmodified opinion results. So, I don't want to keep expecting it, but at this point, we kind of do, just so you know. And then congratulations to you and your team. I mean, the transparency and service that your team provide this community continue to astound me, and I'm deeply grateful for you and your entire team service. Anything else?
I'll echo it. It's great news. A clean audit, no compliance findings. Just a huge credit to you and the team, Nikki. So I am happy to move that we accept the annual comprehensive financial report and audit reports for fiscal year 2024-2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pierce. We really appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you, Pierce. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, everyone. It was a pleasure to present.
Okay, now it's time for item 7.2, contract award for development of an energy resilience plan. And Aaron Brewster is going to cover this for us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I am here to recommend a contract award for development of an energy resilience plan for the town. For some quick background on this project, this was first identified, as you may remember, as an action item in the existing building decarbonization roadmap that was adopted by Council last April. This emerged as a priority measure in the roadmap because community concern over power outages was identified as a key barrier to more widespread implementation of building decarbonization measures. As I'm sure you know, power outages are already a challenge faced by Truckee, and these are expected to increase in both frequency and duration due to the impacts of climate change. Of particular concern are the intentional power shutoffs to mitigate wildfire risk, both public safety outage management, or PSOM events, and emergency de-energization due to active fires. This energy resilience plan is a joint project between the Keep Truckee Green and Emergency Services divisions, and it supports our council priorities related to both emergency preparedness and greenhouse gas emissions reduction. Before we get to our action item today, which is the contract award approval, I just have 2 slides to highlight a bit more detail about this project because we're very excited about it, and I hope you will be too. The primary goals of this energy resilience plan are to first, protect the health and safety of the community by mitigating negative impacts from electric outages, improving indoor air quality, and reducing exposure to outdoor air pollution from wildfire smoke and diesel generators. Second, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions through efficiency, passive resilience measures such as weatherization, increased deployment of renewable energy systems, and shifting away from fossil fuel equipment and backup power sources. And third, to increase economic resilience by mitigating the economic impacts to households and businesses from loss of electricity, and improving the ability of the community to withstand and recover after disruptions to the local electricity supply. This plan is intended to build on existing climate adaptation, emergency preparedness, and building decarbonization planning efforts to translate high-level strategies into specific programs and policies that can be implemented by the town. In terms of the scope of work, I do want to emphasize that this plan is focused on measures that are within the town's ability to implement and not on utility side measures. While our local electric utilities do engage in resilience planning, those efforts are primarily focused on electrical infrastructure. And this plan will fill in the gaps of what's not covered by utility planning, such as building and household level resilience measures and supporting strategies such as transportation assistance. This is particularly important because infrastructure upgrades will not prevent intentional de-energization of the grid during PSOM or active fire events. The recommendations coming out of this project will be specific and actionable measures that the town can implement directly or with community partners. Components of this project are research and preparation, including review of existing plans and other relevant background documents, community engagement with residents, businesses, and visitors to understand climate impacts and resilience needs, particularly with underserved segments of our community or those that face disproportionate impacts from power outages. Next, completing a vulnerability assessment specific to the energy sector to identify exposure to climate hazards, affected resources, potential impacts and adaptive capacity. Then developing a resilience strategy in coordination with town staff to help prioritize resilience needs and identify potential measures. And finally, combining the results of all of this to develop an energy resilience plan that serves as an actionable blueprint for the town to improve local energy resilience. So moving on to our contract award and a proposal selection process. We started by issuing a request for proposals on November 16th of last year. We received 16 proposals in response, which was a higher number than we were expecting. It was very exciting. And those proposals went through a multi-stage review process by staff from the Neighborhood Services and Sustainability Department, our Emergency Services Division, and then we had an interview panel that included town staff as well as a representative from the Truckee-Donner Public Utility District. And at the end of this process, we selected ICF as the winning proposal. Their project team has significant expertise and experience in climate adaptation and energy resilience planning. We felt that their proposal and their team had a good balance of expertise at both the community-wide planning level, as well as an understanding of building-level resilience measures and program and policy development expertise as well. In their proposal, they are planning to partner with Sierra Business Council as well to support the community engagement scope of work, and so they will be subcontracting with SBC if this contract is approved. This project is partially funded by a grant from the California Energy Commission that supports local building decarbonization planning. Approximately 52% of the total cost is estimated to come from the sustainability designation and 48% from the CEC grant. We are required to spend our co-funding first before expending grant funds, so you'll notice that in the breakdown by fiscal year. And these costs, both the grant funding and the sustainability designation funding, were included in the adopted fiscal year 25-26 CIP budget for CIP C2422. And with that, here is our recommended action to approve the contract award. And both myself and our emergency services manager, James Butler, are happy to take any questions you may have about this project.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Erin or no? On this side, yes, of course. Vice Mayor?
I do at this one. Thank you. Erin, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. I have a few questions. So first, on really related to federal funding risk, the grant is funded by DOE's EECBG program, and the staff report sort of flags that the remaining funds are contingent upon congressional appropriation. So given the current federal funding environment, is there a plan B if funding clawbacks do materialize mid-project and sort of relatedly, how quickly could staff return to council? And what's the exposure if like that $92,000 in grant funding evaporates?
Sure. So I do want to clarify that at this time, we do not expect any disruptions to federal funding. We have not been made aware of any particular risks. In terms of how quickly we can sort of turn around and come back to council, we would need to come back to council and request an alternative funding source should the grant funding no longer be available. In terms of how quickly we can turn around and request that funding and how it would impact the project, that would really depend on when in the course of the project that happens, because we do have to expend our co-funding from the sustainability designation first. So that does give us some time until we get to the point where we need those grant funding. And also if it happens very near the end and we have some grant funding in hand, that may have minimal impacts as well. So we would hopefully be able to come back fairly quickly and request a budget amendment if this were to happen, but it's hard to project those impacts at this time.
It sounds like you don't expect it, but you're anticipating, like, here's the plan if it happens.
Correct. We did want to acknowledge that is a possibility, as with any multi-year grant, federal grant funding, it is always contingent on that funding being reapproved.
I think just to put a dot on that I, we would likely just bring that back as a consent item once we identified a funding source. This was more of an opportunity for you to delve into a bit more of what the project is.
I appreciate the dots on the I's. Thank you, Jen. Just on ICF's local capacity, so ICF is a huge national consulting firm, and Sierra Business Council is the local partner for community engagement. What's the actual division of labor? Like, who is the day-to-day project lead?
So the project manager is from ICF is Hazel Tomlin, who is based out of Incline Village, supported by a deputy project manager, Amelia Soljic. And then there is a team of 4 other primary staff from ICF that are not located in the Truckee area, and then 3 staff from Sierra Business Council who are focused on that community engagement scope and are obviously locally based.
And relatedly, it looked like in the ICF proposal itself that was included as an attachment that they didn't actually name any staff. I appreciate that you just gave us those names. So just what commitments will be made in the contract around ICF staff and continuity? I just want to make sure the expertise that sort of won this proposal is the expertise that's actually in the room when we're doing this work.
Sure. So I did attach only a portion of the proposal, just the scope of work, to the council report, but their full proposal does include a list of all the staff that will be supporting, and they are named along with their expertise. The grant does require us to go through a process if we are planning to change any of the project team members. So at this time, we don't expect any changes, but of course there's always turnover at organizations, and unexpected changes can occur. But we will be including that their named staff in the contract, and we do have language also requiring them to notify us of any changes because of those grant requirements.
That gives me a lot of comfort. Thank you. I think like 2 or 3 more questions. I'm really glad that SBC is part of this team because they'll really ground this work locally for us. And so can you just give a little more color to sort of how that is going to be structured so that community engagement, it isn't just a deliverable sort of box that is checked, but something that SBC is leading with real authority throughout the contract period?
Sure. So development of the community engagement plan, the detailed community engagement plan, is actually a task as part of this project. And so we will be working with both ICF and Sierra Business Council to really develop the details of the plan to engage with residents, businesses, and visitors. We're getting a little ahead of the inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility sort of guidance on that. And so we are planning to work with the IDEA program analysts to incorporate those recommendations as they are developed into this outreach strategy, and especially because we are trying to focus on the underserved community members and those who have disproportionate impacts from power outages, so those who are most vulnerable. We already have we did a lot of community engagement work as part of our Climate Ready Truckee adaptation plan. And so that gave us a good picture of sort of the community-wide impacts from these types of disruptions. But we're trying to dive into a little more detail and identify, especially from those underserved and more vulnerable community segments, what their impacts are. And so we want to make sure that the strategy is adequate to reach those community members and achieve meaningful engagement.
I love that you brought that up because my next question was on that equity integration and how the RFP explicitly included equity impacts of recommended measures. So just how will that be tracked in deliverables? And really, again, to reiterate your point, so that income qualified or renter households, sort of those most vulnerable to outages and least able to install backup power, are really centered in those final recommendations in the deliverables.
Sure. So the RFP and the full proposal do address equity throughout the project, not just at the beginning or at the end. As I just mentioned, the community engagement strategy will be designed so that it is founded around our principles of inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. And we are, in terms of both identification of the resilience measures, prioritization of resilience measures, that will be, equity is a key criteria that will be used to both identify and prioritize what is included ultimately in the plan. So there's going to be numerous times for sort of town staff review and feedback from the community on this strategy as it develops, and that will help also course correct and make sure that this plan is meeting the needs of all of our community.
Okay. And when you say equity as a criteria, equity means different things to different people. So you're going to get community feedback specifically around that too. Is
Correct.
that what I just heard? Okay. Last question on just coordination with TDPUD. I know a rep participated in the interview panel, which I think is really encouraging. Is there a formal role for TDPUD in sort of as this moves forward? And I ask because resilience at that household level is largely a utility question. So sort of what's the mechanism to ensure recommendations are actionable given that the PUD is an independent district?
Sure. So the TDPUD and Liberty are key stakeholders as part of this project, and they were identified in the RFP as a key, as part of that community engagement strategy that also included stakeholder engagement. And so we do expect to be working very closely with staff from both of those agencies in terms of providing feedback on the identified measures, because as you said, it's hard to completely separate the scope of work on the utility side and the town side. Our concern, to clarify, when I say it's focused on the town's sort of role, it's really just what we have the ability to implement. So, we're not looking to get recommendations for infrastructure upgrades because that's really outside of our control, but it is obviously a partnership when we get down to implementing building level measures. And we also expect the utilities to be key partners once we get to the implementation of, and like really after this plan's been developed and we start working on the actual programs that were recommended, that's another phase at which those partners will be really important to help us develop those programs.
Okay, thank you. That's it. I know it was a lot of questions, but that additional color around those, it's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, I want to follow up on the Vice Mayor's questions, because when I first read the proposed scope of work, I was encouraged that it seemed to be moving towards taking a more holistic approach, not just trying to go house by building, but instead look more at neighborhood-wide, community-wide areas in terms of providing energy to homes, because it mentions microgrids, distributed energy resources, solar and storage installations, all kinds of things that could be done at a larger scale than an individual home. And you mentioned consulting with the PUD. It seems to me that what this scope was presenting and what we want to do is engage the utility and be consulting with them in order to focus on larger scale supplies, localized sources of energy. Why don't we use this contract to do that?
So this plan is looking at a pretty wide range of scales because the energy resilience challenge is everything from a small backup battery to recharge your phone to a community scale microgrid and everything in between. And so there is a lot of planning that already happens on the utility side that is much more focused on the infrastructure and energy generation at the community scale. There is certainly a portion of that may sort of bleed over into this project to the extent that there's a role for the town to play as a partner. So, for example, microgrids could be a project where the town could partner with the utility. We are drawing that line where it's purely on the utility side that's outside the scope of this project, and that is resilience planning that our utilities already do. There are a lot of resilience measures that do not necessarily involve the utilities. So as I said, portable battery systems, weatherization and other sort of passive resilience measures, other types of backup power and heating sources don't necessarily have to involve utility involvement. So, and everything from providing transportation assistance to community members with mobility needs to get them to our community resilience centers. So we're really looking at those, as I said before, the gaps in what isn't covered by the utility side planning, and those are areas really where the town has much more direct control and influence and the ability to implement. The degree to which our utility partners are involved is really going to depend on the specific, by the specific measure. Some things like microgrids require a lot more coordination, and some things don't necessarily require our utilities to participate. So it will vary.
Okay, those were all great questions. I just have one kind of broader question. The proposal has a schedule, but can you kind of give us an overview of that for the public and to set the expectations?
Sure. So the one thing I will, as I look for that page in the proposal, the one thing I will note is that because of the grant funding, we do kind of have a hard stop at the end of next March and April. We are working with ICF actually to revise the schedule, and we do expect their most recent version that was submitted too late to include in the council report does end next March. So we are expecting to kick this process off probably in May, depending on how long it takes the contract to be executed, with most of the community engagement happening over the summer months when we have more activities in town. And then that will lead into the, simultaneous to that, I should say, the vulnerability assessments will begin. And then we do expect to start having a draft plan to look at by October or November, and then final plan by next February or March.
Okay, great. And the vulnerability assessment, that's the only thing that kind of jumped out at me, because we did do a pretty extensive vulnerability assessment for our climate mitigation effort. So are they going to be updating that, or is that a whole new effort? Is there something different about this new assessment?
Sure. So we were very careful in our RFP to make sure to stress that we didn't want to duplicate effort from our existing planning processes. So developing that, it will leverage the existing vulnerability assessment from our climate adaptation plan. This will be a much more granular assessment, specifically in terms of the impacts related to loss of electrical power. And so our climate adaptation plan is very high level. And so are the strategies that are recommended. And so they're not as easy to translate into an individual policy or program.
Actionable.
Yes, so this is really
measures.
taking that and making it much more granular, looking at the neighborhood level, looking at the household level impacts, and doing and specific critical facilities that are identified that not just government infrastructure, but also grocery stores and other gas stations that the community needs to kind of survive and recover from an extended power outage.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll open this up for public comment. Does any member of the public wish to make a comment on this agenda item? Andrea, come on up.
Hi, everyone. Megan Harwood here. I'm with 100% Renewable Truckee, a new co-leader of that initiative with Deirdre, and really excited about this. Jen, thanks so much for presenting, and I'm super excited to see the outcomes from this. I wanted to quickly comment on a couple of things. I had a chance to review the scope of work before the meeting, and in the background, it was super helpful to hear the presentation. I was really excited to hear and see the bullets on how you're defining energy resilience, including with an eye towards some of the building decarb goals for the town and economic resilience. I did notice when I was reading the scope of work that it seemed like the definition of energy resilience that ICF was taking was pretty focused on climate hazards and infrastructure, which seems a little different than the conversation we're having here around not just energy infrastructure, but also in-home resilience and weatherization and I think one of the key sort of long-term resilience things are insulation from volatile gas prices and energy costs and skyrocketing electricity rates, all those things that we can help with through energy efficiency and weatherization measures in particular. So I just wanted to make a comment that I'm excited to see that was part of the presentation, and I'm really hopeful that can be a part of this effort too, is incorporating that aspect of energy resilience into the plan. I also am excited to see what the stakeholder engagement plan ends up looking like. I saw there were sort of cohorts that were defined, like a CBO and I think a renter-focused cohort, a couple of different cohorts, and I know we would really love to be involved. So as public input sessions get rolled out, hopefully they're sort of broader, more open public input sessions that are included in addition to those tailored cohorts. And then finally, the one other thing I just wanted to comment on that I think I'm personally very excited about, and the 100% Renewable Truckee initiative is really excited about, is the opportunity for ground source heat pumps and thermal energy networks when we're talking about neighborhood scale DER solutions. Especially because they perform really well in cold climates relative to air source heat pumps, certainly relative to gas alternatives. And so I'm not sure that this will be relevant to ICF's energy resilience effort, but we're really excited and hopeful that can get integrated into this if it's appropriate, or into the next steps out of the building decarb roadmap if possible. So yeah, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Megan. Appreciate your comments and your interest in this. Any other public comments? All right, we'll bring it back for deliberation.
I can start.
General commentary here.
Yeah.
I'm expecting.
One more question.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. It just the public comment. Thank you so much. Sort of prompted me into this. So I think the ICF appendix talks about sort of both resilience, and it does call out weatherization as one potential, as they go to recommended measures as part of this. But it also talks about cost-effective measures. And so I'm curious how that is going to be contemplated. There are different cost-effectiveness tests that are used in California. And has there been any conversation around that?
So we have not defined any particular criteria for cost effectiveness. In some of the contexts that term is used in this draft scope of work, I believe it's intended in a very high-level sense. So just in the sense that we're not going to, install a battery backup system in every single building in Truckee. Probably. So that is absolutely, those kinds of details are something we will work very closely with the consultant to define and to kind of weigh a variety of factors to see what's most appropriate for our community.
Yeah, and that ties right in with my first comment for deliberation, and that is on cost effectiveness and the effort required to actually reduce our carbon footprint, if you will. We have been trying to work on weatherization for a long time, and I know that's the direction you've been getting. We've been talking about buildings, how buildings generate so much in the way of emissions and how much we could do to reduce those emissions, but we've made very little progress. Working with Sierra Business Council, the Contractors Association, a variety of groups, the years go by and we're just finding it to be a bigger and bigger challenge. That acknowledging we're making progress, some progress, but not as much as we would like, which makes me think we need to be thinking more about the alternatives in terms of local energy sources and how do we develop those. I think that means working with the utilities. Please do not shy away from that. When we're talking about cost effectiveness, let's consider the cost effectiveness of microgrids, ground sourced heat pump networks. Let's put a dollar figure on that and look at cost effectiveness both in terms of hard and soft costs as well as societal impacts.
Okay, thank you. Do you have additional comments, Vice Mayor?
Oh, I would just say I'm supportive of this contract. I think it directly implements an action from our decarb roadmap that we approved last April. It addresses two of our strategic priorities simultaneously on wildfire preparation and on climate leadership. It seems like the competitive process was very rigorous. I mean, 16 proposals. I see. Yeah, 16 proposals, just the panel review, the interviews. And I think that ICF's partnership with Sierra Business Council is really the right structure for our community. The only area of focus I just want to reiterate is that federal funding risk, which even if we don't expect it, we just have to be able to anticipate to mitigate risk. So I really appreciate that you flagged it in the staff report. Because we are authorizing $193,000 with half of it contingent on federal dollars that could be uncertain. So I would just love if any clawbacks occur with that federal funding, council is made aware of that as promptly as possible. And subject to that, I support this wholeheartedly.
We do still have a robust sustainability designation, though, to cover this. Yes. Okay. Comments from this side?
Sure, I'm in full support. I think, Aaron, in your comments, you said how it's energy resilience can look at anything from charging your phone to big things. So to Councilmember Zabrisky's point, I think, let's dive in and look at all of our options. So support continuing to leave everything on the table as we go through this process, but appreciate the work and all the great questions from my fellow council members.
I don't think I have anything to add. I support this moving forward.
Great, thank you. Okay, yeah, this is excellent. You knew I'd be excited about this one. Again, I too am really excited about the leveraging of both you as a resource and this as a contemplation of Ready Truckee. I think that is in great service to our community because it is satisfying two very big needs. I agree with my fellow council members on, we keep trying to move the needle and we're just not moving the needle very fast. So it does get frustrating. I get excited every time we see one of these things because I think, okay, now we're going to move the needle. So I really hope this moves the needle. I look forward to supporting the community meetings. I'm sure we're going to have robust participation from our interested parties, and thank you very much for bringing this forward. And yes, we do need a motion on this one.
I move that we authorize the town manager to execute a contract with ICF Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $193,063 to develop an energy resilience plan for the town of Truckee.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, I'm going to do a quick check of my fellow council members. Do we want to try to plow through item 7.3, or do we want to take a quick break?
I'll have a very quick washroom break. I apologize because I know you're all waiting for this discussion.
Okay, we will make it very, very quick. 5 minutes. No chatting. Okay.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and get this meeting started again. Although, where's Jen?
She'll be back momentarily.
Okay, well, I just have to, we're just realizing that we're kind of disappointed that we don't have birthday cake today because so many of our birthdays are this month, including
Comment
Jen's.
noted.
Would you like us to sing for you?
No.
That's a
Did you
wise
not hear
choice.
the word cake? It was just cake, Hillary. No singing.
Yeah, including our town manager.
Oh my goodness, I'm 2 minutes late, and what has happened here?
What has happened is we've realized we don't have cake for all of our birthdays.
Well, we have a second meeting in March.
Oh, well, okay, that's true. She's got a point there.
Fair, fair.
Okay, all right, agenda item, thank you, everybody, for letting us go through that. Agenda item 7.3, Truckee Library C2110 Budget Amendment and Funding Request for Phase 2 Design. Becky.
Thank you, Mayor. So Becky Bucar, I'm Public Works Director. And yes, this item is about requesting funding to move on to the next phase of design for the Truckee Library project. Just a little background, the Truckee Library is a project that staff has been working on, the town's been working on in collaboration with Nevada County and Friends of the Truckee Library for some time. I think we were talking about it the other day, I think we started working on it in 2017, so it's been a long time going. It definitely meets, council priorities. We've always talked about it meeting the infrastructure priority, providing infrastructure to enhance quality of life for everyone, but definitely touches on some of the other ones related to emergency preparedness because of the Community Resiliency Center piece, enhanced communication, access to many different folks, and even the sustainability piece. Where we're at in the process is this core group of partners did a funding share to get through phase 1 of the design, which was really to get us to like an entitlement package, schematic designs far enough along that it's something that you could get like a land use approval on. Measure G got passed, which will provide some funding to the project. And now, so really the next step is to get the designs to a place where we can go out to bid, get final construction documents, and so that we have a shovel-ready project. So the request tonight is the total phase 2 design cost is about $1.5 million. That includes the contract with JKAE, who is the architectural design firm that did the phase 1. It also includes some administrative costs for the JPA and some contingency, legal counsel, things like that. The proposal in front of you tonight is that the town, Nevada County, and Friends of the Truckee Library would all contribute 1/3 of that cost. When we're looking at the bond measure, the Nevada County and the town of Truckee both transferred $150,000 into the JPA account to help fund that process. And it was supposed to fund the election costs, bond counsel, special tax assessment. We had savings in that, so there's still money in the account. So when I say town share of JPA fund balance here, this negative number, we're taking credit for that fund balance that's there. So the actual request tonight is an additional $447,158. I will say that the Friends of the Truckee Library, this was their board approved this funding share previously in February, and the Nevada County Board of Supervisors approved it this morning at their meeting. Just real quick, aside from our kind of core team, we also have Placer County as a non-voting member of the library JPA. We've also worked really closely with Truckee Donner Recreation and Park District and the Truckee Donner Public Utility District. In fact, there's a lease option agreement in place that will provide the land for the library at a very nominal amount. And then also more recently, the Truckee Tahoe Airport District approved a $2 million funding contribution towards construction for the library. So just representative of all the regional partnership and contributions that have been happening for the library. There's a lot of information on this slide, but the request that we have, there's a letter attached to the staff report. It was a request from the Friends of the Truckee Library, we have lots of representatives over here, and I think when it cuts to council questions, I would probably offer up that they could answer a lot of these questions related to the request. But really, the request is, as I mentioned, we're trying to move forward with phase 2 design to get a shovel-ready project. And this project does align with the council priorities. Again, the other partners have agreed to contribute equal amounts. Friends of the Truckee Library kind of really provide some additional detail why this request is coming through. The numbers, the cost of the project, and where the exact funding is coming from is a little bit, I'll say, squishy at this point because we're still working on the final design, and but we have ballpark estimates for what it's going to cost. And so this graph on the right just is really representing that, Measure G is going to be able to provide funding for a big chunk of the project, but there's donations and grants are going to have to make up the remainder of that. And in the letter from Friends of the Truckee Library, they did indicate they've actually done a good job of acquiring grants and donations to date. There's a $8.5 million to date, and so they're on schedule for getting the funding that we need to build the library. They're on track of what they had planned. So another kind of piece of this is that it's important to move forward on this now. The Friends in their letter kind of touch on the fact that if more delays will mean that we have to push out construction, and with delayed construction, we have more cost escalations. And then also delaying will result in a loss of momentum for the campaign. And I'll let Friends of the Truckee Library just talk a little bit more about that. And then really the county and the town having contributions and having funding in the pot does leverage additional grant funds and private donations. Another thing I would just mention here is that the phase 2 design costs are eligible for reimbursement from the Measure G bond proceeds. To date, we've always sort of, when talking about the funding plan, we've assumed that those would go to construction, but it is important to note they could be reimbursed. So this table was in your staff report. What we're recommending is is a budget amendment to make the transfer of funds to the JPA possible for the town's share. And what we're proposing to do is spread it over 2 fiscal years, with 1/3 going in this fiscal year and the 2/3 going the next fiscal year. And the funding would come from general fund, and that's possible partially because of some of the savings that we've had where revenues came in higher than what we had estimated. I just put this up here because it was in the staff report and there's a question about it. We have, since 2023, when we first started tracking our staff time, we've put in about 1,000 hours of time. That's just staff time, but that also includes Jen's time and Hillary's time on the JPA staff, as well as Kelly as our clerk for the JPA. Last time I checked, I think we had about 4 public comment on this item. There were 4 comments in support, and that included a follow-up letter from the Friends with some additional detail and context around the request. And really, I think that was sort of my quick presentation. Again, I want to mention that there's members from the Friends are here to answer questions. Our recommendation is first to amend the budget as outlined in the staff report to provide the funding to allow the transfer to occur, and then authorize the transfer of $447,158 to the library JPA for the purpose of funding the final design of the project. So with that is my presentation.
Okay, great. Do we have questions from the council? You want to go ahead? Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay. So Becky, maybe I'll start with some questions that I think are probably most appropriate for you, and then I might turn over to here if someone from the Friends of the Library wants to pop up. So just to confirm, the town has thus far committed about $700,000 to $750,000 to the library project in actual real dollars, right? I just want to make sure I have
Correct.
that right.
Yep.
And that's sort of across the site and conceptual planning, ballot measure feasibility studies, the bond measure, and I understand it was partially expended. So sort of across all of those different categories.
That's correct.
Okay. And in staff time, based on that estimate that goes back to only to 2023, about another 200,000 plus. So we're at about $1 million committed to the library already. Is that? I'm just making sure I'm tracking everything correctly.
Correct. That's yes. So that was a council question. The staff time was 200,000 plus the roughly 700 to 800,000 that we've committed previously.
And we don't know before 2018 to 2023, that 5-year period when we were working on the library, we weren't really tracking it.
We weren't
in the same way at that point.
The level of the amount of time that was spent on it, I think was spread out over more time and wasn't as high, but maybe Jen can comment.
Yeah, I can say when I started in 2020, Hillary and I were primarily the leads on that, and I didn't track any of my time. That was when we were kind of going through the feasibility analysis study of forming a JPA, and then Hillary worked on it even prior to that. And they didn't track their time by the project.
That's fine. Thank you for just confirming those. And then Becky, you mentioned that funds from Measure G, like the town funds, could be reimbursed. Is that could be or will be? Because I see those as very different things. I guess what is staff's estimated likelihood that they would be reimbursed if we went down that path?
Well, obviously we'd have to, receive the Measure G funds for us to be able to use those funds to reimburse. It's an eligible cost. So anything spent from the time that the JPA adopted a resolution that sort of set a point in time, all the expenses from that moving forward are eligible for reimbursement. But as I said, sort of the funding plan that we put together to date has always sort of assumed that those funds were going to go towards construction. So it is not a definite.
Okay.
It's probably a future decision that needs to be made, but.
That's helpful. No, I appreciate that. Okay, I think those are my questions for you, Becky. And April, is it you? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for being here. So at we're almost a year now, the April 2025 council meeting, the Friends of the Library committed to raising $20 million, $10 million from private philanthropy and $10 million from grant funding and opportunities like that. And I understand that about $8.5 million has been committed so far, $4.2 million in private philanthropy, $4.3 million in grants. Is that correct?
Correct.
Just and if anyone's watching on TV.
Correct.
Okay. And then of that $4.2 million in private philanthropy and $4.3 million in grants pledged, how much has actually been received, like dollars in the door to date?
Yeah. So dollars in the door to date are about $2.8 million cash. Understanding that a majority of our private philanthropy is structured intentionally to be multi-year pledges in order to have the opportunity to elevate the gifts that are given. So typical in a capital campaign that they're structured over 3 years, that allows us to reach that higher goal of philanthropy.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Zabriskie, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. So the County Board of Supervisors unanimously approved the additional funding, their match to what the town's being asked to contribute.
That's
today?
correct, this morning.
Okay. And then in their staff report, I think they did say there's about 15,000 card holders, but the library only holds 56 people. Does that sound about right?
I can't confirm that. It sounds about right.
54 people.
54. Okay, thank you. And then April, one last thing, the county staff said the library was built for a population of 2,000, and now we're about 9 times that size.
The region which it serves is about 20,000.
Okay, thank you. And then Measure G, that passed by 72%.
72.44%.
Okay. And then, do you remember Measure A? That was the operating revenue sales tax, the county tax. Do you remember what that was, what that passed?
It required a 2/3 majority. It passed well above that. 70.
Okay. That just reminds me, I want to do a couple disclosures. One is my wife is the president of Friends of the Truckee Library. And then the other is I had spoken with April yesterday afternoon and was asking about phase 1 and phase 2. And her comment today more than covered what she told me then. So I'd refer to her letter if you want to know what she said to me. Okay, coming back to questions. Oh, maybe April again is the one. I'm seeing a figure of 42 million for just all in overall costs. And then you're talking about construction costs, post shovel ready costs as being 32 million, or is that number higher? 32 million may be an old number.
39 is the all-in, the $3 million additional. So when you get to 42 is your pre-construction, so items before. But that 39 includes site work, it includes surrounding infrastructure work, it includes FF&E, so furniture, fixtures, equipment, it includes contingencies as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, back to you, Becky. I'm looking at the numbers in the staff report, and what it looks like if we were to approve this, it would be $823,000 out of the general fund in total, because we had input from the American Rescue Action Plan and a Nevada County grant that was part of what would be almost 1.2 million.
Correct. There was those two other funding sources. The Nevada County grant was actually the county reimbursing us for some of our costs and for us, yeah. So that's, yes, that's correct though. The general fund amount is less than the total.
So I'm calculating if the town were putting in around $1 or $1.2 million, that would be maybe 2% investment. Essentially, our rate of return would be around 4,000%. That sound about right? It's pretty simple. If it's $40 million of costs and the town puts in $1 million, that's a 4,000% return on the town's investment. Am I missing something?
Well, it's not a town-owned asset.
Right, I'm just talking financially in terms of what the community gets.
If you're looking at it from that
costs
perspective,
$40
that's the
million.
correct math, yes.
Yeah, I don't mean to suggest that the JPA would hold title to the building.
I think we're still working that out, but that's an option, or the county would hold title, likely the JPA.
Then the other thing, has anyone looked to see how many other municipalities operate libraries or have their own libraries in California?
We haven't done that analysis. I don't know if the friends know that, but if you're interested in that and you'd like us to spend time doing that, we can.
Okay, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Romack?
Yeah, thank you, Becky, for the presentation, and friends for being here. I'll disclose I spoke with Kathleen Egan today. So one question I asked her, so I'll just ask you, April, too, so it's on the record. I think reading through the staff report, reading through your letter, my understanding is that you guys would expect that after phase 2, it's ready to go to construction, and you don't necessarily see, of course, we never know what's going to happen, but you don't forecast a phase 3 or anything else prior to being ready to go to construction or start doing site work, start that process.
You're correct.
Okay. And then again, from what I was reading and all of the information and what Becky showed in kind of the pie chart, that you are acknowledging that it's your focus to be fundraising to make up the delta that is not generated by Measure G, correct?
Friends of the Truckee Library is committed to raising the funds needed. We have a plan to raise $20 million that is incredibly disciplined and structured to get us to that goal.
Thank you. And then again, we never know what's going to happen in the world, but you wouldn't foresee at this time coming back to the town to ask for construction funding.
We have an incredibly detailed, structured plan in which we have identified up to $40 million in opportunities, which we are pursuing at an exhausted rate. And in that plan, there is no intention to ask the town of Truckee for any construction funding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Pallavi.
How exhaustive, April? How many hours are you working every week? I'm just kidding.
I
That's
don't
not
track-
my real question.
I don't track my hours either.
Maybe just to go, my only question is just to maybe dovetail off of what Councilmember Romack asked you, and I don't know if you were inferring anything or not, but by asking if they were going to a phase 3, are you also asking if they're coming back to the town for another request for design money? Is that the intention? You already answered you're not coming back for phase 3, so I think that was
okay.
sort of where
if
we
I'm
were going.
understanding correctly, the question is are additional dollars going to be asked for design funding? The way that this phase 2 is structured and has Becky's laid out in the staff report is inclusive of what we anticipate for the entirety of pre-construction design work. We have contingencies in there, and I can speak for the Friends of Truckee Library. It is our understanding that that is our total budget, no dollar more from the town nor the county. So if there were an issue where there were pre-construction fees that were unexpected and needed to be completed, the Friends of the Truckee Library will take responsibility for that.
You are now on the record.
I know.
My questions are
I was going to
over.
say that at the end. You've got me.
Good job, April.
No, I'm happy to do
That's it
that.
for
It's our commitment.
Thank you, guys. Thanks all
Yeah.
for being here.
Thank you both for those very specific and direct questions. Okay, so my question might be a bit mute with the comment that you have 40 million in opportunities. So these are potential either philanthropic funds or grants combined up to that amount. We received 2 letters from you, one on February 28th or something, that said Measure G was anticipated to raise between 16 and 19 million. Your letter today stated that was 20 million. Do we have an adjustment in that, or we're just trying to round numbers? Or?
We don't. Very good question. And I actually noticed that discrepancy today. I've typically been using the term 16 to 19 millions. That's our conservative estimate, and that was in the language and communication used for Measure G campaign. So I'd pulled that into my letter. When I prepared the second letter, what I was pulling from was a state earmark grant, or a state earmark application, which was applied for by the town of Truckee. And I wanted to find some consistency in exactly how we are speaking on the terms of what funds are coming in and what funds have been expended. So it was in my adjustment to find that consistency with this application that's where that discrepancy has occurred.
Okay, thank you. Because the other numbers were slightly inconsistent as well, but they're all coming from that same 40 million pot, so I'm not going to worry about those as much. That's your gray hair.
It is a full, and there is, and my plan is, the way that we've structured it was the anticipation of about a 50-50 split, 10 million between private philanthropy and 10 million with grants, understanding that we have a total goal of 20 million. And so how you get there there may be some fluctuations in that. What we have seen is an almost even split in what we are receiving in between philanthropy and grants. So to say that we're on track with our fundraising, what has been demonstrated seems to be really in line with our projections.
Okay. And I know you talk about it in your second letter, but as you've stated, you have donations in the coffers now. You have grant money. Why is it important to seek funds from your partner agencies to pay for the completion of the design?
That's a great question. And it's a challenging question. I think that we are stepping into new waters here altogether with this very large-scale civic infrastructure project with a combination of public and private entities working together with multiple government agencies, and the private philanthropy and the grant opportunities is half of what this project is, essentially. Private philanthropy and grants are incredibly competitive. There is a lot of need out there. And, it's something Councilmember Henderson mentioned earlier, the fear of getting funding and having it be clawed back because of the volatility of the economic environment. So in order to be able to achieve a goal like this one, you have to have incredibly strong applications. You have to demonstrate collaboration. You have to demonstrate partnerships that are effective. So that's a piece of it. That demonstration of collaborative partnerships, number one, is the strongest thing that we can do in order to leverage additional funding. The second piece of that is the availability for funding for pre-construction versus funding for bricks and mortar. And then I would say separately funding for FF&E, so furniture, fixtures, equipment, funding specific for sustainability initiatives. There are opportunities out there that are more restrictive. And in order to focus our energy on opportunities that are specific, we need to qualify for them. So getting to the point where we have all of our pre-construction funding secured, it opens up those opportunities for us. So this really hits two different key items in order for us to hit our very large fundraising goals, and that's the demonstration of collaboration and the ability to qualify for construction funding and FF&E funding.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Do we have any additional questions? Okay, we'll open this up for public comment. I suspect we have a few. If you would please approach the podium and state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Should I sit first?
It's up to you.
Hi, my name's April Cole. I'm the executive director for the Friends of the Truckee Library. I prepared these comments because, first of all, I want to thank the town. Staff have been just enjoyable to work with. This is an exciting project where we get the opportunity to try new things, to be able to realize very, very big vision, and to set up a project as a model for opportunities for future projects similar to this. Different partners, different agencies, but being able to set up a structure and really learn from it. So I want to thank council members, and I want to thank the staff for the opportunity to work on this together. Just put that out there. I also want to share with you that because of the phase 1 support that we received earlier, similar to that collaboration piece, readying the project, what it did is it set up a foundation for success. We have had a lot of really big hurdles in front of us, most notably is Measure G, and being able to demonstrate to our community that we have designed a project that meets their needs, going out and having active stakeholder engagement, setting up the resiliency piece. We would love to share our anecdotal information with your resiliency plan on what we learned about the impact and the need for long-term power outage disruption, the lack of reliable broadband internet. We heard that from the community in our design phase, which happened in phase 1. So we had the opportunity to present a project that the community is excited about. And we saw that with demonstrated support in Measure G. I spoke about the fundraising, and I'll just touch on it again. We have now 3 dedicated full-time staff members who are working with us to reach our our fundraising goals, plus over 25 dedicated volunteers who are working on the capital campaign. I mentioned earlier that we have already raised $8.5 million in split commitments. With the pledges that are included in that, they're legally binding pledge agreements. So, and I talked about the competitiveness. Let me see, I got all my little notes here. Yeah, I mean, really, that's it. I've got 30 seconds, so what I'll say is this. It takes a lot. It takes a village. It takes a town. It takes a council. It takes 1 million volunteers to make really big things happen. And I am just really grateful that we all get to step into this together, and I appreciate your consideration of this funding request. Oh, 16 seconds.
Thank you. Do we have additional public comment?
Thank you, council members and mayor and staff. I do want to echo April's comments and thank you so much for your ongoing support of this project. You have our commitment that we will raise the 20 million, and you have our commitment that we will work hard also to make this a cost-effective, efficient building. Thank you.
Short and sweet, Joan. Thank you. Come on up.
Hi, everybody. My name's Oliver Brock, and I'm a junior over at Truckee High School. You might know me from taking photos of the football team in the fall, or I'm also one of the club officers for Truckee High School's Model United Nations Club. One of Truckee's strengths as a community, I feel, is our diversity, and it's reflected in the town of Truckee's community values, specifically community outreach, involvement, and transparency. Constructing and completing a new library would be in direct service of this value. It provided much-needed neutral community space where community outreach and community gatherings can occur. As a volunteer for the Yes on Measure G program, Yes on Measure G campaign in the fall, I'd be deeply saddened to any delay of the construction of our new library. Therefore, I encourage the town council to support the construction of our new library and planning of our new library in any means necessary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Estefania Gaitan Mesa. I'm a Truckee High senior, and I have also been a library intern at the Truckee Library, and I have seen firsthand the need that the library needs for a new library, not only for teen programming, also kid programming, Spanish programs, English programs. It is so necessary, and especially this year, I witnessed firsthand how desperately it's needed for new study spaces, especially for teens, and a new library would provide more than enough study spaces after school for students. And I'm just incredibly grateful for your consideration, and I would be also pretty devastated for the delay. And thank you.
Thank you both for taking the time to be here this evening and sharing your thoughts. If you would all be so kind as to fill out a public comment card so we can get the spelling of your name correct in the notes. Are there any other people that are interested in making public comment? Seeing none. On this side? Barney? No. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'll bring it back for deliberation. Vice Mayor Henderson, I think we started questions with you.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, especially because I know you've sat through a couple hours of other agenda items already. I want to say by starting by saying that I'm a genuine supporter of the library. I think you all know that. I have been from the very, very beginning. And I'm a genuine supporter of the Friends of the Library. The work that you have done to get the project to this stage is remarkable. The design process, the community engagement, it reflects real dedication. And I don't want anything that I say tonight to be heard as criticism of that work. Because of all of that dedication, I really want to make sure that we set this project up for success in all the ways that we can to get it across the finish line, so that we do have a beautiful, new, expansive library that provides so many different resources to so many members of our community. My concern right now is about sustainability. At our prior April meeting, the Friends of the Library did commit to raise $20 million privately. I'm hearing that you're still committed to raising the $20 million, and you've made real progress. I do want to address the pledges directly. Pledges are not dollars. They are stated intentions, and I respect every one of them. But I think that we know from experience, whether it's in philanthropy, in different campaigns that we've all been a part of, in development finance, pledges don't always convert. And I hear you say some of them are legally binding, so that's encouraging. So the question to me isn't whether sort of we trust those donors, it's just whether $8.5 million in pledges is the same as $8.5 million in the bank, and it isn't. That's not a reflection on the Friends of the Library. It's just how capital campaigns work, and it's a risk we owe it to our Truckee residents to manage really carefully. So what we just heard is that $2.8 million has been received to date, which again is incredible progress out of $8.5 million pledged. So that means we have $5.7 million in pledges that have not yet been converted. And again, I want to be clear, that's not unusual for a campaign at this stage. But it's also, to me, why I think we need to tie funding from the town to a milestone to reflect good governance. We're being asked to release public dollars against a fundraising picture where 2/3 of pledged commitments are still outstanding. So what I would like to propose to my fellow council members for consideration, because I know that there was some concern about this at our retreat as well, is that we tie the second $250,000 out of the full $500 ask to $3.3 million in actual received funds by the Friends of the Library. Exactly $500,000 more than where the Friends stand today. And that number is not arbitrary. That is precisely what the Friends are asking the town to contribute in total tonight. And if the campaign can convert the equivalent of the town's full ask in private and or philanthropic dollars, that's the signal that I need to release that second tranche. It feels like a fair bar. It's an accountable bar. It's not that far from where you are now. And frankly, to me, it's a milestone and a bar that protects everyone. I heard tonight that our commitment, the town's commitment, signals confidence to private donors, and I accept that. And I would say that the town's $250,000 tonight is that signal. And the second tranche being contingent on a milestone doesn't undermine that signal, it reinforces it. It tells donors the town is watching, the town is engaged, the town will invest as the campaign demonstrates it's on track with its fundraising. I really, really want this library built. I want the Friends and all of our partners who have worked on this going back for years to 2018, including the town, to succeed. So to me, I'm very comfortable with $250,000 tonight with the remaining funding when the campaign demonstrates that it's on track. That's not a no. That's a yes with accountability. That's a yes with good governance principles underlying it. And it's a yes that gets us to the finish line together. So I will support this tonight if it's structured with the $250,000 released effectively almost immediately, and that remainder released once the Friends of the Library demonstrates it can get to $3.3 million in funds received. Exactly $500,000 more than where the Friends stand tonight, and exactly the same amount they're asking the town and all of our taxpayers to contribute.
Thank you. We have a proposal on the table then. Councilmember Zabriskie.
Well, we know we have the money. Staff report said the actuals over budget on what's actually undesignated money is 1.5 million. 1.5 million on top of 35.1 million. So we certainly have the money. We know there's the community support. And we've heard why the Friends of the Library think it is so important to have the money now to help them raise the funds, the money that the Vice Mayor was talking about, the pledges and the grants. It's to show uniform, universal support. And we know we have that support from the county and from the Friends. Just about every entity out there has shown great support for the library. A little ironic that the town council, the council for Truckee, the very community that benefits the most, seems to be the most reluctant to put in what is 1 or 2% of the value of the benefit the community receives. So you can clearly see why I support staff's recommendation. The vice mayor brought up an interesting proposal. It's too bad we didn't ask questions. We didn't know to ask questions about the pledges. I think a lot of them are contractual. Essentially, the donor would have to go bankrupt to be unable to honor the pledge. And then we don't know what the Friends thinks of the vice mayor's proposal, whether that is something they think they could live with in terms of garnering those donors. So that's those are concerns for me. I mean, I'd be open to reopening to ask the Friends what their concerns are with the vice mayor's proposal, but I think we need to hear from the other council members first.
Turning to my left, Councilmember Romack.
Sure, I'm happy to jump in. And first, I want to celebrate that we've had 3 different school-aged kids today. We had a junior, senior, we had a 6th grader earlier. So just thank you so much for coming. And it's great to see young people involved, and keep coming on all the issues and tell your friends. I know auditing and all that stuff earlier was probably really fascinating. Sorry, Nikki. Anyway, to the library, I think it's been a council priority that we support the library. We've invested funding. You know, my questions tonight were really to try to understand what would future asks of the town be. Because I think, you know, when this came up at our council retreat, I wasn't really thinking there was going to be another ask for phase 2. So trying to understand again, is this going to be a continued yearly ask? And what I heard from the Friends is no, that this is, you know, they're really looking to this. They're committed to fundraising. I also know this is a group that got results back from the, you know, True North Research, what they did last year. And it said, the polling, thank you, I couldn't think of the word, that this wouldn't pass. And this group led the charge and passed it. So again, I have faith in this group that they can fundraise what they've committed to. And again, I feel comfortable that, again, as you said, Councilmember Pallavi, we heard on the record, they're not intending to come back to us and ask for additional funding. I understand, I mean, I know we all understand grants and the challenge, April, thanks to speaking to that, of this is designated for this and this, so it's harder to try to pull money from what you have. I think what I also heard from April too is that some of the commitments are over a 3-year period of time. So it also might be a challenge. Again, someone who gave 200,000 this year is giving 200 next year and the following year. So they wouldn't necessarily be able to commit additional funding now to meet that goal. So appreciate the creativity, but I would say again, since we have the funding available, I'm comfortable committing to, you know, the 447, 158 today, so that they can continue to move forward and not be held back with any chance that, you know, the funding doesn't come through next year. So I'm comfortable moving forward.
Councilmember Pallavi.
Thank you all for being here very much so. Councilmember Henderson, thank you also for your introduction and negotiation, I guess, or at least proposal. I think I look at this in a couple of different ways. I reread the staff report one more time and recognize the timeline in greater detail, which was phase 1, then go for a bond measure and prove what happens, and then come back for phase 2. And that's where we are today. I also look at the quote unquote sexy parts of this project versus the just down and dirty work that needs to get done. And there's a reason why people want their names on things, because they're built and they look pretty, and they're nice out there, and plaques don't really sit well on pieces of paper that are plans in a architectural drawing before they're built. So I think if anybody was going to take this risk, it's almost incumbent on us to take it and to spend this money. I really like Councilmember Henderson's proposal, but I'm going to move beyond that, and I apologize that I'm not going to support you on this one, but I am going to be in support of where we are moving forward, because I think, again, this is what the town's kind of role in all of this is. And if we look at a price tag of 40 million, and while we have invested however millions of dollars in staff time, we invest a lot of staff time in a lot of things that don't go anywhere sometimes, and this one's going to hopefully go somewhere. So I look at it almost as a necessity to keep it going. And I think it also, I would agree with our student commenters that it would be a disservice to not fund it at this point and not continue moving them forward, because they've done so much work to get us here. They got Measure G passed, so I'm supportive of what's in front of us.
Okay, thank you for that. I did share concerns, just to be clear with everybody, about the continual ask. I think it's been made really clear that this, moving forward, you guys are Friends of the Library is taking responsibility for the fundraising. And the reason why that gave me pause, I just want to be clear so our community understands. When the town of Truckee incorporated, we divided up with the Nevada County what the responsibilities were. And that dictates our tax base. And so the town of Truckee does not collect taxes in order to operate or fund or build libraries. That is clearly in Nevada County's sandbox. But we keep participating, we keep dipping in, we keep contributing because this is such an incredible opportunity and hopefully future resource for our community. And we all see that and have supported it. But I'm trying to be a very good steward of those tax dollars. And the more the town of Truckee matches these Nevada County funds, the more I feel, and now soon our constituents will be taxed for Measure G as well. It starts to concern me about that duplication of taxation for one effort. Now, I think our community has spoken far and wide about their support for this, given the passage of Measure G, and it is with that confidence of votes, despite all odds, that gives me our fellow council members the confidence to trust in you to raise the rest of the funds. I do think, though, that we want to continue to have that transparency with our community and make sure they are confident in how this is being funded and operated, and that we are clearly making sure that the town of Truckee is protecting its investments, not just in the library, but in our other council priorities. And so that's where my pause came from, just to have clarity on that. And I love the idea that you had, Councilmember Zabriskie, of the return on the investment, because that's the world I live in, finding returns on investment and trying to justify those to the community or to my CBO or whoever. And I see where you're going with it, but we do have to also be really clear to ourselves and to the community that this is not a Town of Truckee asset. It is a Town of Truckee resource that we are contributing to and supporting. And that is worthy and valuable. But I want to make sure we don't give the impression to our community that this is a town asset. So with that, is there more that you want to say and contribute to this?
Yeah, I really appreciate the conversation and the openness to sort of hearing this. And I just want to sort of say a little bit more about where I was coming from. So we build accountability in on a lot of our other initiatives and programs. And I feel like part of what I heard tonight is sort of a classic, but we can afford it argument. And so I do want to counter that a little bit. The town having the money is not the same as the town having the obligation to release it without any conditions at all. And that's true regardless of any fund balance. To me, it really is about what we owe Truckee residents in terms of responsible stewardship of those funds. And again, I want the library built. But we're a public body. We don't get to take risks with public funds the way a private donor can, for example. A private donor can write a check on faith. We have a higher obligation as a public body. So I'll say if the council wants to move in this direction, it seems like it does, without any accountability on the full $500,000, I won't stand in the way. I will sit up here despite my reservations, and I'll support this with my colleagues tonight. But I do want my concerns, about pledge conversions, about milestone accountability on the record. I really want this to happen, but I'm also going to watch closely, and I really want to make sure that we're moving in a direction where we're not just talking about all of the pledges received, but we're talking about real dollars received, because it is a really, really big difference.
Yeah, thank you for that clarity. Okay, any additional deliberation or discussion on this?
I just want to back you up on your comments to come on Council Members Zabriskie. I too did not necessarily agree with that ROI statement and thought it was not tied into the asset, and I do agree with that. And just to finish this on Councilmember Henderson's statement, to me, the accountability was on the ballot measure, honestly. And had the ballot measure been closer or more no's or other arguments out there, I think that's the accountability that I was looking for. And having cleared that hurdle allowed me to release that piece of it and keep it moving forward. So I think there's a balance for all of us in all of this, and it's a great conversation. So good luck. Keep it moving.
Did you have
Yeah, I'll
something?
move we adopt staff's recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Okay, we will go on to item 7.4. Truckee Police Department Policy 709 to comply with state legislation under AB 481. Captain Madden will be presenting. Welcome, Captain Madden.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council members. I am bringing forward a discussion on our annual military equipment report. You have seen this before a couple times, so I'm going to be pretty brief with this one. So in 2021, California defined military equipment under California Government Code 7070. There's 15 categories that they defined different military equipment, but I put them in smaller buckets just so it's a little bit more digestible. But what California defined military equipment as is armored vehicles. So those are SWAT-type vehicles to carry personnel into high-risk incidents. Certain firearms and ammunition, typically over 50 caliber ammunition, and certain specialty weapons are considered military equipment. Less lethal tools, those include beanbags, beanbag shotguns and rounds. Explosive or breaching tools, those are typically entry devices that have some sort of explosive device in nature. Unmanned systems, we know those as drones. Surveillance and monitoring equipment, that is your command and control vehicles. And specialized tactical equipment, those are typically used for crowd management. So those are the definitions of what military equipment is. What does this mean for the Truckee Police Department? What we have that falls under Government Code 7070, we have drones, we have pepper ball munitions and launchers, we have less lethal beanbag rounds and launchers, and we have simunition rounds and simunition firearms. Although, just to note, simunition rounds and simunition firearms are not authorized for field use, so they're only for training. So our summary of usage for this last reporting period, which is March 2025 to March 2026, we have 2 drones. We use those drones for individual operator training. We use them for calls for service, which included missing persons, wanted subjects, search and rescue operations, and we also use it for traffic collision mapping. We used it for situational awareness during community events to support public safety. And we also use it for internal media creation purposes. So we did deploy the drone at our downtown block party to take some pictures. We have 4 pepper ball launchers and munitions. We use those for individual user training. We use them for wildlife diversion as well. And just to note, there was no munitions that were projected at human targets as a less lethal force option during this reporting period. We have beanbag shotguns and munitions. These are the bright orange, less lethal shotguns that we carry in our patrol vehicles. We use them for in-service training. We use them for non-lethal wildlife diversion. And to note again, no munitions were fired at human targets as a less lethal force option during this reporting period. And then we also have simunition firearms and rounds. We have 6 firearms. We use those for training only, like I mentioned. And this included some citizen scenario role play, and there's no authorized field use for these. So from 2025 to 2026, we received no complaints regarding our use of military equipment. All of our military equipment items were inventoried and accounted for, and there was no policy violations to report for this reporting period. All of our equipment usage by department personnel was found to be within policy with prior authorization from a supervisor outside of any exigent circumstances. So this is a very complicated graph, and it will be posted to our website if you want to delve further into this. But just a few items to note, our 2 drones have gone end of life. They are still on there because we do still have them as a resource if we need them, but we are not going to put funds into any maintenance on them. We do have 2 new drones, newer drones that we do use, and we are sending some officers to get their drone pilot licenses. So we are trying to expand that program, but right now the drones that we have are sufficient. Any questions or comments?
Do we have any questions from council? Any from this side? Councilmember Zabriskie?
You know, we enjoy these year after year because it's always, everything went fine. We missed the jackrabbit. We need to replace that beanbag or whatever. My question is on the drones. There's no need to use the drones for any normal law enforcement. You're not chasing a fleeing vehicle with a drone or anything like that.
Typically, we wouldn't chase a vehicle with a drone. We would call a helicopter if we had one available. Drones just have a smaller radius for us to be able to deploy. So it is typically for a search and rescue operation. If there is a wanted subject on foot, we could deploy the drone, and we have deployed the drone in the past to try and find that person. Like I said, it's a smaller radius, so we can't be flying it miles.
Okay. Do you foresee wanting to make any changes of this policy that seems to be the same year after year?
Yeah, I'll just add, with the drone deployment, we would also deploy a drone in a situation to where there's an armed barricaded subject, usually in a car or a vehicle in a remote area. So that's one application that we would deploy a drone in. And what was your question that you just had?
Do you foresee any policy changes, and then do you have any concerns about this program that we should start thinking about?
So we fall under the legal requirements of reporting, and we don't dictate what military equipment is. We are always looking to expand our drone program. At this time, what we have right now is sufficient until we get drone operators more comfortable with deploying the drones. But right now, we do have one in the field when officers are out driving around.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Go right ahead.
Sorry, just, I think it was in the staff report, but just for the community's awareness and transparency, I believe there was a community meeting on this. So if community members had comments, there was an opportunity for folks to come in and learn more, correct, Captain?
Correct. We did have a meeting in this room where there was a couple different items to take a peek at, and it was lightly attended.
Thank you for that.
Just out of curiosity, we use the bean bags and the pepper balls mostly for wildfire or wildlife deterrence. Do urban police departments deploy those devices, and if so, for what reason?
They're not as common, but they typically use them for humans.
Okay. Glad we don't have to. Are there any public comments on this agenda item? We have one of our Chief Advisory Committee members in the audience. No comment? No? Okay. Okay. Bringing it back, do we have any council deliberation, or do I have a motion?
I just have, you go first. If you
Well, just a comment.
I also have a quick one.
And why I asked that question, Captain in Chief, I just want to highlight again the great transparency that I think our police department has. We have the Chiefs Advisory Commission. I know you both are always available to the community. So again, this is just highlighting great opportunities. If people have questions that they can, you guys are available. So just thank you for continuing that.
My thank you was just no offense to the chief, because I think you've given us this in the past, but having pictures of what the things were and not just showing us that Excel file, which you've shown us year after year, that was just really nice to have a different presentation. So we appreciate you, Captain Madden. Thank you. And again, no offense, Chief. We appreciate you as well for all that you're doing out there.
We like graphics.
Yes, we like graphics. We like pictures of the things.
Give us
Yeah,
pictures. Appreciate the
those were
feedback.
great.
Any general commentary on this side?
I'm happy to.
I agree with Councilmember Pallavi on all points.
Great. Same. Very supportive.
Do we need a
Yes,
we need
do
a motion
need a motion
somewhere?
Yes, because we need to adopt this. Please.
So, Captain Madden, you did not give us a motion on our screen. That is. Oh, do we have one? Oh,
That was my fault.
oh, geez.
I follow your comments are taken back.
It. I'll make a motion that we approve Ordinance 2026-06, adopting the Truckee Police Department Policy 709, military equipment funding, acquisition, and use.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Now for the really exciting one, 7.5, organization-wide operational assessment implementation plan and update. Oh, that is a sentence. Jen Calloway.
Bit of a mouthful for sure, but this is your kind of quarterly-ish, I would say, update on the implementation plan and where we are at, and also a little bit of an insight into what we are planning to propose in the upcoming budget cycle, at least as of today. That's in alignment with the recommendations out of the assessment. First, just as a little bit of a reminder, we had the Baker Tilly organizational assessment, the Air Diamond Development Services Review, and then our True North Community Opinion Survey. All of those kind of aligned and coalesced at the same time. You heard that presentation just about a year ago. It would have been a year ago in May, with the number of recommendations, and we took some pretty immediate action. We actually started even before you received those reports with some early recommendations that we heard were coming. So we are well on the way to implementing many of these recommendations. I'm really addressing specifically the Baker Tilly recommendations here. You all know that Air Diamond report, and David is working on implementation of Cloud Permit, and that's just a really big lift. So that's been the focus of his recommendations in the first implementation of those. But in terms of Baker Tilly, with the 90 plus recommendations in that report, we've completed 22 of those, which is really great progress considering this is a 10-year-ish roadmap for the town. We have about another 45 that are in process or scheduled to be started within the next year, and 25 that are kind of on the wait list, holding for either budget or more data to inform how we would move those forward. Recent milestones and completed items since you last heard this update in September. We adopted the PIEs, or the engineering standards. We've hired our IT business analyst position, and he's helping to support many of our implementations, such as NeoGov, which has been really great for our organization in terms of just process and efficiency. We revised the town attorney contract language as per recommended in the report with the recent update and adoption of the town attorney's new contract. And we've communicated with the school district about a second SRO position. They're really prioritizing a need in the Placer County schools at this point. So it's kind of complete on our end. They know that we're willing to support that when they have capacity and the ability to move that forward, assuming we have the budget capacity at the time. That's a split position that we fund 50-50. We've hired our new emergency services coordinator, who was here for most of the evening, Justin. He'll be introduced later on. He's in week 2 of working with the town, so getting up to speed. We've completely reorganized what was formerly the assistant to the town manager position and department. That is now the Department of Neighborhood Services and Sustainability. We have a new director that will be starting mid-April and announced very soon to the community, as they're just finishing up their pre-employment background checks. And then our former assistant to the town manager went through a recruitment process and is now our assistant town manager. So that is considered complete. And the NeoGov application that I was talking about, the first phase of that, which was recruitment, is launched. It's been really effective. We've been getting great responses to most of our job postings that we've had. There's some of the more technical ones that we still don't get a significant number of applicants for, but many of them have been over 100 applications. So that's been a really broad reach for us. And we are kind of beta testing phase 2, which is the onboarding process. So instead of all the paper and the binders that we used to use, it's all electronic now. Our 2 newest employees that started a week ago beta tested that. We got some really good feedback from it, but it was really cool and a great process for them to go through. So we're excited about that. In terms of customer-centric kind of planning and technology items, the free planner appointments, that was not a direct recommendation in the report, but something we implemented before the report even came out in response to feedback. We've had about 70 appointments, averaging 2 to 3 a week. And so far, feedback has been good, both from the planners and from customers, feeling like it was a great opportunity to kind of clarify questions or get redirected to the right place if they were on the wrong track. So we're planning to continue those. Our cloud permit rollout timeline is on schedule so far. Again, building will be ready to launch in May. They're building that out right now. Code compliance module might be slightly behind that, but pretty close. And then phase 2, which will be in this upcoming budget and fiscal year, is launching the planning module and the public works module. So we're very excited about those. In terms of the proposed operational investments for sidewalks and trails, there's a recommendation in Baker Tilly to dedicate and establish a more focused work group for sidewalk and trails. We are reviewing that with the proposed budget that you'll start hearing in April. Excited for budget workshops coming up. Perhaps slightly nuanced from this recommendation, but still in alignment with that, and figuring out how we can have some dedicated positions to focus just on our trails and our sidewalks, on that infrastructure. We are also evaluating some of our contract work that we do. We incur pretty significant construction inspection costs for all of our construction CIP projects. We used to use retired annuitants. When the CalPERS regulations changed, we were no longer able to do that, and we've been outsourcing that work since that time. It can range quite significantly from year to year, depending on the complexity and the number of capital projects we have, but we're examining what it would look like to bring a portion of that in-house by hiring a fairly high-level engineer that can support that work in the summer and maybe some project development in the winter. So that's being evaluated. We're also looking at what the Baker-Tilly report recommended was an unhoused outreach officer. We're considering something a little bit broader than that. It would be a sworn officer position, but more of a community resource officer. It would provide substantial support for our unhoused community in the navigation center, but more broadly also work with our downtown businesses and our businesses that have some issues or concerns if there's, robberies, or sometimes there's some safety concerns that the businesses express to us, and they could liaison with the businesses and other community needs as well. And then lastly, I spoke to the second phase of the cloud permit implementation, which is public works and the planning modules. Another big item that you'll see in the draft proposed budget for capital investment is a new CIP for a public safety facility. The assessment identified 20 plus positions in PD, and that was really just on the sworn side. There were some non-sworn positions as well. We're still kind of analyzing that, getting our data and looking through that a little bit more. Those are not positions we're planning or could add today. We don't have capacity for that, and we're not sure if the need exists today for all of those. However, I think it's very fair to say that in the future, we are going to need some number of those positions, and just growing the police department as the community grows and community challenges grow. We are out of capacity in our current facility. For anybody watching, it's like the second half of Town Hall, kind of right below us. The facility is not sized appropriately, nor does it meet modern safety and standards for policing. So starting that project means identifying a site, possibly acquiring land, and then going through a design effort. So we're starting to plan that now, so that in the 10-ish years or so, when we're ready to actually break ground on that, we've saved money, we're ready to go, and we're ready to meet the needs of the community at that point. And then let's see. This is just a reminder that it is that 10-year roadmap that we're looking at. However, we've made good progress so far. I'm really proud of the team for all the work they've done on this. We've hired a lot of positions, and we're really grateful for the council's support in hiring those positions to help increase our capacity. We talked about this at the time, but another reminder that that's about a year long before we really realize that capacity. By the time we go through recruitment, onboarding, and training, you don't see the results of that right away. So we're still in that kind of implementation phase as we're bringing people on and they're getting trained. That's really all I had. You did receive one public comment on this from the Chamber of Commerce, asking to prioritize recommendations that are kind of in progress. That was the only public comment received. They are in progress, all of them. If you wanted to advance any of those, we'd have to talk about what we would not do. A lot of them were focused, many of them, not all, were focused in kind of the planning, development services realm, and we've been really focused on cloud permit and that, and just keeping up with the number of projects. So that's probably why they're not seeing as much movement on that front as they would like to. But that's all I have, if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Jen. Do we have questions from this side? Councilmember Zabriskie?
You mentioned the comment letter from the chamber, but I wasn't able to hear what you were saying about it, and I was curious what your response was, particularly on the highlighting of recommendations 1 and 18, which seemed to be what she was, the first thing that Jessica Penman was talking about. 1 being the Economic Development Strategic Plan, and then 18 was the facilitated workshop with planning staff. What
Yep.
do I think? No, establishing a routine pre-submittal process.
So the Economic Vitality Strategic Plan is, the RFP is drafted, it's being reviewed, and then will be going out very soon. So that is moving forward and is in the current work plan and the budget. So I think we're meeting that expectation. I'm not sure we can expedite that any quicker than we currently are. The setting up a routine pre-submittal conference, our community development director has been doing that for larger projects and kind of just testing out how that works. We're not at a place where we're really going to write something down as this is the process, but she's been doing that, kind of understanding what expectations are, what timelines are, and helping to clarify that in the beginning, and we'll continue to kind of modify that and work through that.
Okay, so everything under that topic in the staff report where you say these are things that we plan to have in process, are in process or plan to do in these 12 months is still true?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Questions on this side? No? Do we have any public comment? Seeing none. Come back for deliberation. Anybody have any discussion they would like to hold on this?
Thank you. My comment is thank you.
Anything on this side?
Good job. Thank you. Clear.
Clear directive. There's a clear plan. There's a strategy. There's transparency. There's consistency in the approach, making sure that these measures are maximizing the benefit to our community and to customer service and to improving the work environment. I mean, it's just, it's really amazing. And I want to make sure you realize how valuable we see these updates as, because it really reaffirms the investment that you made and that you continue to make consistent progress on, so our community can build that trust and that confidence that we have heard them, we're listening, we're being responsive, and we are committed to continual improvement. So I really want to validate the effort that you put into the presentation, into doing these updates and keeping us informed and the community informed on how this organization is really transforming. So thank you.
Thank you for that. I think we've all really benefited from this assessment and just learning where we need to go and what capacity we need to build in order to meet those goals. So it's been helpful for us in the support of the council in funding, staffing, technology. All of that has really moved the needle for us, I think, as an organization. And then we do have this little new graphic that we're kind of just going to use as a stamp, as a subtle or not so subtle way, I suppose, of just reminding people, like, this did come from that assessment. This isn't a report that's sitting on the shelf and nothing is happening from it. So kind of similar to the general plan one that we use.
I love that. Thank you very much. So important. And we're just accepting this report. You don't need a vote from us, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Anything else on this topic? Wonderful. I do believe that means we are at council reports, correct? Councilmember Zabriskie?
I met with Jessica Penman, and that's all I can report of any relevance for the last 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh. You've been slacking. I'm so proud of you.
Slacking.
I'm
quite
really,
happily slacking.
I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Zabriskie. Okay. Vice Mayor Henderson?
Sorry, I'm pulling up my calendar right now. I think I went right from all of the work around organizing the vigil to a conference to give a talk on energy, which is a little bit different, but I think that those have been the things that have taken up a lot of my space right now.
Yep, understandably. Okay, Councilmember Romack.
Yes, I had one meeting, but there was a lot of discussion, and that was today's Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. Just a few things of interest. As I mentioned before, I highlighted the transit app. They were all very excited, but they also had a lot of feedback on our transit system, which I can share more with Alfred and the town, but some things around more neighborhood shuttles and Tart Connect and various things, while acknowledging there is limited funding, but their push was really, how do we use our limited funding to its best use? So that was just interesting that the chamber was interested in that. Speaking of transportation, there was also a report from Amber Burke with the school district that they're having a lot of issues with people passing school buses. So just a community reminder, when the stop sign is out, you have to stop. And I'm sure the police will ticket you or pull you over and do all the things. So just be really cautious of that. Yeah, which is, again, kind of scary because there's young children getting on and off the bus. And then they recently completed their business listening session, which I'm sure Councilmember Zabriskie, when you met with Jessica, she shared. The report is up on their website, but just an opportunity to kind of hear from businesses and I think, reflection on, needing support from the town and making things easy. And I think, again, the operational assessment speaks to ways we are trying to help businesses have clearer paths. And then there was also a discussion around the new restaurants in the old lumber yard and the parking impacts. So discussing that, and I'm sure, again, town staff are aware of that. But one thing that was brought up is there's not currently a striped intersection on Church Street or on Roundhouse Way, I think it's called, in Church Street, leaving the parking lot. So that was just something I wanted to highlight, and I said I would. Just, again, as probably more people are walking back and forth now, getting to the various parking lots. So just something to be on our radar, because talked about, parking challenges in that section now that we have thriving businesses there. And that is it.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Pallavi.
I had 3 meetings that I'll go into. The first one being really quick. I sat in on that state board webinar. I don't know if you guys got that invite. It was actually really quite interesting. There's a really long list of state boards if anybody's looking for additional volunteer opportunities. I did not see any that were particularly pertinent to either our region or community, but there are a lot of things out there, and they really mentioned that if you apply, they're going to appoint you really quickly. So if there is something you're interested in, the administration is looking to fill those vacancies as quickly as possible before the term expires. That was the least exciting of my 3 meetings. I did attend the first commercial waste for business workshop. Is that what it's called? Something like that. Where the solid waste department, Keep Truckee Green, is had a couple of listening sessions with the business community primarily. In my meeting, there was probably 20, 25 people in the room, and a variety of businesses from West River Street to downtown to my business and the Safeway Shopping Center, and a variety of others. And the themes were consistent and yet so vexing. So it will be interesting to see how they come back and sort of at what service levels, but a really good first step for the solid waste department. What do you want to add?
And can I add to that we will also be pushing out a business survey with the same questions that were discussed during the workshop format.
Great.
And we also will have a poll coming out to get residential customer feedback in the coming months.
Yeah, they said they would be doing some residential outreach as well as that starts to move through the process. So that was just really well done. And then had a meeting, I believe it was yesterday, with Nevada County and Placer County. It was Cindy, Hardy, and myself as the electeds, along with our staff, talking about the future of the housing JPA. And the results of that will be a bit unknown, with a JPA strategic retreat scheduled for next week, and we'll probably hear more about that in April at some of our upcoming council meetings. So that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. I had a couple of meetings. One was I attended the DIPS core team meeting, Donner Lake Interagency Partnership for Stewardship group, and that was really interesting, although it wasn't anything of what I expected it to be. A lot of very fascinating data on the lake and on the lake clarity. And then we got a big assignment to do preliminary stewardship plan prioritization by agency. So I know Becky and Slater were on that meeting. I'm at your disposal for reviewing and commenting on that. It's a very complex table. I think I'm going to need an Excel lesson in order to manipulate it, but maybe you'll take care of that instead. And then we'll be presenting or giving that back to Truckee River Watershed Council, who will gather all those prioritizations and somehow work out some decision-making matrix there with all of that. I also attended the last CTA Governing Partners meeting. Looks like they'll be doing a presentation to the North Tahoe Truckee Leadership Program, so that's exciting. And then we did more strategic planning about the April incubator project opportunity. So I encourage anybody in the community that's interested in carbon footprint reduction and has an idea and wants to see if anybody else wants to join them in that idea, to participate in the next meeting, which is April 12th, 9 to 11 a.m. at the Truckee Airport Boardroom. And then other than that, just a few constituent meetings about various community interests. So that's it. And we do not have closed session tonight, so we get to adjourn until our end of March meeting. Thank you, everybody.